Terrible with your train of thought. Sit down somewhere. I know your granddaddy is disrupted with you. Most of you niggas ain't never had no grandfathers or fathers that told you to sit down and listen. We going fishing today. You want to play Fortnite, you going fishing, punk. Sit down and pick up these worms, fool. Put the worms on the hook and stop all this bitch ass crying. Okay, your mama ain't here. You can and you will put the worm on the hook, 40-year-old man. And the worm is wiggly and dirty. The worm. I'm so tired of you little ass nigga.
No, I said pepper accused him, and this boy wants to kill.
Y'all know Joseph over there laughing his ass. Joseph like, why you doing me like this? Stop. Get the goddamn worms, son. I can't. There's a bunch of them. Ew, they're gonna eat me. Lord have mercy. I hate that shit, man. What comes to make you mad, make you want to whoop your son ass right there in front of all these white folks. He just playing. He ain't scared of this goddamn worm. Is your son. Is ya. Goddamn it. This little nigga, white man, like, yeah, he is afraid of that worm. My son over here, he picking up worms. Look at this. Eat one, Bob. Look at this. Look at my boy. He putting on worms. Look at this shit. Lord have mercy.
See, they gonna deny some.
We're talking about police report, Reverend Billy Cowles being.
I was at the trial in Memphis. I want to show you all quickly, explain to you why that jury of 6 blacks and 6 whites after 3 hours came back and found that white boy guilty of conspiring to kill Dr. Martin Luther King. And they went further than that. And they also said there was some co-conspirators, black folks, unnamed, that was involved. I want to show you a little 3-minute clip of the minister that Dr. King was going by his house for dinner. He was due at 7, but they had to move it up because 7 would be a little too dark to shoot somebody. So they moved it to 6 o'clock. 2 years ago at a press conference in Memphis, I get a call. They said, so-and-so is thinking about killing so-and-so, so-and-so. I said, what? They said, well, he said something at a press conference. They put him on the phone. I said, whatever you do, get that film. Because once NBC realized what this brother had slipped and said, we will never get our hands on the film. What you're fixing to see now went into the evidence in the King trial where they brought a wrongful death suit, and I'll explain that to you quickly in a minute. But what you're fixing to witness now is the man who came by to get King to take him to dinner. And 30 years later at a press conference, he slipped because God do baffle your mind sometimes. You look,
some of the activities are geared especially for the young who did not have a chance to get the feel or to know what the civil rights movement actually was about. Even as they marched, now they could have stopped in a hotel, but when you think about marching from Memphis to Jackson or Jackson to Memphis, there were no hotels. You stayed in churches, you stayed in people's homes, and that's how we got over, that's how we got through. The struggle was a spiritual struggle. You couldn't pay people to do what we had to do. You couldn't pay people to stand before mad dogs and fire hoses and billy clubs and cattle prods. It was strictly a a spiritual and moral movement. So we wanted that dimension to be in the pilgrimage to Memphis. We will revisit the mountaintop speech site. That's the Mason's Temple, where Dr. King made his last address, which he almost didn't make, because the night that we were having that rally, there were tornado warnings, and he was behind on the Poor People's Campaign. And he said, you guys go on over and have the rally. I'm going to stay at the motel and work on the Poor People's Campaign. When we got there, and Dr. Abernathy walked in, and Jesse Jackson walked in, and I walked in, and others, people started clapping because they thought Martin was behind us. And so Ralph's preacher said to him, this is not our crowd. And he went to the phone and called Dr. King. And that any of the marches that we had in those days, you have an opportunity to bring the children and bring the family and march with us. And when I finished sharing with them the last hour of Dr. King's life, oh, hurry. But that gave me the wonderful privilege of spending the last hour on earth. 3 preachers in a room, Abernathy, King, and Kyle. And we spent that last hour together in room 306 at the Lorraine Motel. The press is always curious, and writers, what went on? What did you talk about? I say, we just talk preacher talk. What preachers talk about when they get together.
Y'all pay
revivals and all
what you're fixing to hear now.
About 5:45, we walked on the balcony, and he was talking to people in the courtyard. He stood here and I stood there. Only as I moved away, so we could have a clear shot, the shot rang out. Thank you. Turned around and then knocked him back on the balcony.
Listen. Oh. Wait, listen. Listen. 30 years later, this brother never realized that he would slip and say that. Do you know what happened when you're sitting in a jury room about a conspiracy and this piece of film is introduced? He stood here, I stood here, only as I moved away so he could have a clear shot. The shot rang out. This was the brother that he was going by his house for dinner. Now, to my brother Matty, you will have a copy of this tape. I'll get it back to you. And what you should do is make copies. See to it, because this is a very valuable. And y'all need to send this tape to people all over this country. And so this was the trial that went on that the press didn't want to report because they couldn't. Huh? They couldn't. And so we have to stop getting mad and upset because the same system that's killing us refused to tell us the truth. You have to use your own God-given intelligence. If we was all over in Germany today walking down the street and we see this big old building and it's named after Adolf Hitler, you don't have to be too smart to realize something evil is going on inside that building. Well, how come you don't understand that when you walk down in Washington, D.C. and see that big old brand new FBI building named after J. Edgar Hoover? How come we don't know something evil is going on inside that building? Let me briefly tell you some of the things that you overheard. The trial should have lasted a day and a half. It lasted 30 days. The black press in Memphis didn't even show up. Let me tell you how this trial came about. About 6 years ago, a white man named Lloyd Jarwin, who probably, now this is just my philosophy, believe, who probably was told they're fixing to blame the King murders on you. So he went to ABC, and they did a whole session with him, telling them how he was involved and what the conspiracy and who it was. And then they never ran it. And so now he's running for his life. So he goes to the King family, and he tells them the same thing that he told ABC. He tells them 3 times, and the 4th time, Andy Young. And they filmed it, they taped it. And he said, I was given $100,000 by Frank Liberto, who was the mafia puppet who ran Memphis for the big mafia boys out of New Orleans. So it was Frank Liberto, he said, that gave him $100,000 to set up the whole mechanism for killing King. In the building right behind the Lorraine Hotel with the courtyard bumped into, Lord Jarvis had a restaurant called Jim's Grill. He also said that at the first meeting, here's who was there, so-and-so was there, so-and-so was there, and let me tell you, the black man in the very famous picture that was leaning over Martin Luther King, Merle McClellan, he was there at the first meeting. We didn't know at the time his job was to do 2 things. One was to point everybody in the wrong direction. It was him that pointed and said the shots came from there. Not only was he an undercover cop, he was so undercover that his paycheck didn't even come from the Memphis Police Department, came from the utility company. And now tonight, as we sit here, he's a CIA agent. His other job was to infiltrate a little group of little juvenile thugs. They call themselves the Invaders. And y'all got to be careful about what y'all join just because they're yelling and screaming about Whitey. Y'all got to be careful about what kind of evil, nasty black folk you get around that want to go blow up something and then wonder why you get arrested on your way there. Martin Luther King was preparing for the Poor People's March in Washington, D.C. Yet many senators and many Congress people said, we don't think he should come here because we are afraid of the amount of violence that will be created. Martin Luther King's answer to that was, I've led demonstrations, there's been violence, but it wasn't on our side. It was people attacking us. Now, if I'm going to be blamed for that, then there's something wrong. And so they decided that they would create a violent situation. And Merle McClellan, the undercover Memphis cop, had also infiltrated the Invaders, and it was when King came in for one day to lead that march. One day to lead that march. One day. It was their job to see to it that it broke into a ride so King could no longer say that I've never led a march that led to a ride. And that was to force him to come back for a second march so they could kill him. And so all at once the King family decides to sue Lord Jarvis on a wrongful death suit. Not that they wanted any money, so the first time the truth could be validated and documented. So there's a lot of people upset about the Truth and Reconciliation Committee in South Africa, but 100 years from now, because of that, 100 years from now, nobody has to say, let me tell you what those black folks say they did to them. They can't say that now because white folks came and testified on the oath that this is what we did. because this trial no longer will anybody be able to say these conspirators allege this to have happened. It's documented under oath. They subpoenaed the captain who was over the fire station, which was across the street, firehouse number 2 from the Lorraine Hotel. 34 years later, he's 34 years older, 7 years old, fat, getting ready to die, wanting to find Jesus. So he came and raised his hand and told the truth. Would you give your name? Yes. How old are you? What's your occupation? I'm retired. What was it before you retired? The Memphis Farm. What was your top rank? Battalion commander. Where were you on April the 4th, 1968 when Martin Luther King was shot? Said I was in charge of the fire station across the street from the Lorraine Hotel. Did you notice anything different that day? Yeah, early that morning some people came and introduced themselves as Army intelligence. Said they'd like to go up on the roof and put King under surveillance. What'd you do? I led them up to the roof. What did they have with them? They had large containers, small containers. What do you think was in the containers? I don't know. What do you think? Well, it could have been stuff to take motion pictures, still pictures. Could the containers held high power rifles? Yes, they could have. And then what happened? Well, later that day when the shot rang out, they were still on the roof. So we know that the United States government not only had pictures of Martin Luther King being killed, they also had pictures of the person that did it. So then what happened? So then I rushed across the street and ran up the steps where King was laying on the ground, and I helped put him on the stretcher. Said, did you get to see the wound? Say yes. Would you describe it to the jury? Say the wound was going up, which means he had been shot from down here, not up there. He's a white man who ran the fire station, who probably 30-some years ago couldn't care if King lived or died. He's a white man sitting there saying to 6 blacks and 6 white jewelry that, yes, I saw the wound and the wound went this way. And the next one that testified that he had interviewed people from military intelligence, the 111, the 209. The 209 is so vicious, they were scared of CIA. And the 184, that's the sniper team, that's the Rangers. When they had to admit they was there, they say, well, we was there as a backup, and that leads you to believe they was talking about to back up in case the security broke down. They was there to back up in case that hit didn't get, they was supposed to take him out. That's what the jury heard. Lord Jawa's defense was real hip. There was so much overwhelming evidence that there was a conspiracy. His defense was, yes, I was part of a conspiracy. I just didn't know the person that I was supposed to have killed was Martin Luther King. And what made that so beautiful, it meant that they couldn't object to none of the stuff that was going because they wanted everybody to know what we knew, that it was a conspiracy. He just didn't know it was Dr. King. 70 witnesses they got to hear, plus to see that film. They got to listen to Earl Clark's wife. Who was Earl Clark? Well, when the shot rang out, the dude who shot took the rifle and gave it to Lord Jawas, and he took it through the back of his restaurant window, and then he jumped over a concrete embankment, and there was a black cab driver called Butler, cab 58. He heard the shot. He didn't know King had been hit. He got out the cab to see what happened, see this white man jumping over this concrete embankment, so he followed him around the corner and watched him get into a police cruiser. That man who shot King Clark, Memphis cop, dead now. But they subpoenaed his wife. She came to defend the good name of Earl. My husband couldn't have done that because he was homesick all that day. At what time did he find out Dr. King had been shot? Well, he found out over his police radio. And then what happened? He realized how serious it was that he had to go in. And then what happened? Well, all of his uniforms was in the cleaners. So I had to go get his uniforms out. Miss Clark, you aware what time Dr. King was shot? Oh, I think it was a little bit after 6 o'clock. Miss Clark, are you aware that the cleaners closed at 5? That's what the jury heard. Huh? That's what the jury heard. There's an FBI agent named Donald Wilson found in Atlanta. He's the one that notes in it found the Mustang. But he said the minute he read the notes, he knew it was a conspiracy. But he called one of the numbers. This is 1968. That was on the number, and it ended up going to a nightclub in Dallas that Jack Ruby used to own. And Jack Ruby is the one who killed Lee Harvey Oswald, who was arrested for killing Kennedy. He said he got so scared he never turned it in because he thought if he turned it in and they know he looked at that, they would kill him. This is the FBI. This is who we have to deal with every day. Those of us out here in the movement have to deal with folks who are a white FBI agent said, I didn't turn the stuff in because had I turned it in, it probably would have killed me. Things they heard at the trial. Just to set the record straight, James L. Ray never confessed to killing King. He pleaded guilty. There's a difference. If a cop grabbed me and said, I'll kill all your granddaughters if you don't say you took that person, I plead guilty. A confession means you have to know some of the intricate details that nobody else knows but the police who was there investigating it and the person that did it. He never confessed. This document went into the records. He had probably one of the best defense attorneys that had ever lived in the history of the planet at the time. His defense attorney was called Percy Foreman from Houston. Lawyers used to come in from all over the world and just go to this bar where he used to hang out and just sit and listen to Percy talk. He was James L. Ray's lawyer. James L. Ray was coming up to be sentenced on March the 10th. Here's the letter that Percy Foreman, James L. Ray's lawyer, sent him on March the 9th, 1969. Percy Foreman, Houston, Texas, March the 9th, 1969. Mr. James Earl Ray, Shelby County Jail, Memphis, Tennessee. Dear James Earl, you've asked that I advance to your brother Ray, Jerry Ray, $500 of the $5,000 referred to in the first $5,000 paid by William Bradford Huey on January the 29th. Mr. Huey advanced an additional $5,000. At that time, I had spent in excess of $9,500 on your case. Since then, I have spent in excess of $4,000 additional. But I am willing to advance Jerry $500 and add that to the $165,000 mentioned in my other letter to you today. In other words, I would receive the first $165,500, but I would make the advance to your brother of $500. And this advance also is contingent upon your plea of guilty at the sentencing tomorrow on March the 10th without any unseemly conduct on your part in the courtroom. Here's a man's lawyer that told him, your father 30 years ago jumped bail. We're fixing to put him in jail. If you don't plead guilty, I, your lawyer, personally will see to it you get the elected chair. And all the way, we're trying to explain how y'all got all this money. So the government is going to say that your brother and you robbed banks. So he's going to jail if you don't go in and plead guilty tomorrow. The jury got this letter from his lawyer, promising him $165,000, but it was contingent on him pleading guilty. Thank God to the King family. Thank God to William Pepper that handled that case. Thank God to everybody out here and the many people that died. His brother was murdered. They said he drowned in the swimming pool. Dr. King's brother, because he was questioning King's death. A.D. They tried to kill Coretta in the church and missed her and killed Dr. King's mother and made like it was some little crazy lunatic guy that came down. And yet, King family kept on moving. Never born with millions of dollars. Never had the glamour that the Kennedy family had, and yet the Kennedy family haven't spent one nickel trying to find out what had happened to them Kennedys, including that funny little thing that went down with John last summer.
Thank you.
And so I say to you tonight, make no doubt about it, we are in one of the most evil, nasty, vicious, insane, ungodly, unethical systems that's ever existed in the history of the planet. And not only will they kill black folks, they'll kill white folks that look like they're going to show us in a certain light. How many of y'all in here saw the movie The Green Mile? Thank you. How many of y'all didn't like it? We'll go back and see it again. I've seen it 13 times. And when you go back and really see what that movie's about, then you realize why Stephen King was hit with that truck. And then you realize why 2 months ago Stephen King had a press conference and said he'll never write again. And then you realize last Friday, this guy that got all kinds of bad records of driving went into court, one of the most powerful writers that ever lived, and got set free. And I'm going to say to you again, those of y'all that didn't like the movie, you should say a prayer that your mind will be open to see what you really saw. And those of you that haven't seen it, every day that goes by without you seeing it, you do the 70 trillion cells in your body a disservice. What's the name of the movie? The Green Mile. Who saw it? You remember what the black man's name was? John Copley. And those initials is J. what? Go back and see the movie. And then read the New Testament, because that movie is the story of Jesus Christ. They just took a mentally retarded nigga and made him Jesus, and most of y'all didn't even see that, because y'all would expect a Ron Brown type nigga to be made Jesus. Huh? That white woman laying in the bed, that was Mary Magdalene. Y'all go back and see it. Those of you who didn't understand. Jesus Christ wasn't healing. He was pulling demons out of people, and he cast them in the pigs, and the pigs went crazy. In that movie, he pulled them demons out and cast it into that pig top, and he went crazy. Y'all go back and see that movie again. In the Bible, when Jesus was put on the cross, he was hung between two thieves. That was the the two guys that got executed ahead of him. Yeah. And the one thief say, when you go to heaven, will you remember me? That was the Indian brother that said to Tom Hanks, if I repent now, will I be good? Y'all need to go back and y'all need to start breaking code. But y'all can go, y'all like Matrix. Everything I did, like Matrix. Because they showed a black woman and a black man that had the finest mind in the history of the planet. But the white boy was the savior. Huh? I ain't met a black person that didn't like it. How can you like that filth? And here a white man sit and took a mentally retarded nigger and made him Jesus Christ. And because of that, they tried to kill him.
Since Proctor is the one who was picked to replace Martin King, but Jesse is the one he trained. If you had spent all this time on putting him in place, and you ain't got nobody else around Martin. Now, Andy was supposed to be shot with Martin, but Andy wasn't on the balcony. He was on the floor, so he didn't get it. Ralph was inside, so he didn't get it. Key point, if you spend all that time, and Martin's about to say you are agent, do you understand that you got to press go on the assassination? Because now Martin is so continuously condemning you, you got wiretaps everywhere. And we know what he said about Jesse in front of everybody, but who knows what he said when it was just him and Ralph? How much more severe was his accusations? Such that if you didn't kill Martin, white limitations don't run out on murder. Okay, let's let this run, and then we're going to go back and look at it again in straight speed. Look at.
He won a few times.
Right, look at Jesse. Martin still won't acknowledge him.
Usually when he finished his speech, he was covered.
Yes, go back. Now I ask you, when you look at it, is that Jesus or Judas? Jesus or Judas?
Few times, and I saw him visibly shaking himself.
Nobody would touch him.
He was caught up in it. But
Just let it run. Caught
up as he was that night.
Now we're on the day of.
How he spent the day.
Now Jesse done went and told them, look, you better move now.
Reteaching not violence.
I'm running out of time. This the Last Supper.
Making sure that everybody was focused. I spent the day in court and convinced the judge that we could put together a nonviolent demonstration. When I came back to the motel, he said, where have you been? I've been looking for you all day long. And he picked up the pillow off the bed and he threw it at me. I was trying to explain to him that I'd been in court. And he said, don't you know you're supposed to call me? You need to let me know what's going on. I said, look, I was on the stand most of the day. And he was just feeling good. And every time I'd offer an excuse, he'd pick up another pillow and throw it at me. So after a little while, I just started picking them back. And everybody sort of picked up pillows, and we had just a very childish pillow fight. And then the last sentence. Dr. He always liked to eat catfish at the little rainbow dam. And Miss Lady said about the platter. And Dr. Agadappa was upset because she only had one platter. And the kid said, hush, and put the plate in the bed. And said, everybody, get something off of this plate to eat.
See these men break up trying to tell that story.
Dinner was to be served at my home at 6 o'clock. I went to the room.
They brought him on the balcony at 3:06.
I said, oh,
He was shot with a .30-06.
He said, oh, no, I called the house, and dinner is not until 6, so we are in no hurry. I said, oh, my goodness. But by doing that, it gave me the wonderful privilege of spending the last hour of his life in room 306. He and Ralph Abernathy and myself. Then he and I were on the balcony. Ralph was still inside. And he was greeting people he had not seen.
I was in the parking lot, and we were suggesting that it was cool, and maybe he ought to go back and take a top coat with him, just in case.
I heard him above me.
It's my man Hosea.
And we had a limousine. I could touch the limousine. Had been loaned to us by one of the local fuel homes. And I heard a voice, the guy who was driving the limousine. He said, Dr. King. Dr. King said, yes, Joe. He said, although the car is on, it's chilly, I recommend you get your coat. And the last word he said in this was, okay, Joe, get my coat. And I was done said, pow!
Stop. Oh, stop. Go back. Key point. Let's go back. There's the maid right there we were looking for. There's the cart. Oh. Okay, let's freeze it at the highest point where Jesse's back is in the pit. Right there. Stop. There we go. There's Jesse Jackson. There's the maid. There's the cart. There's the white boy, Lau, L-A-U-E, head of the community strike, a member of the Community Relations Service of the Justice Department, which spies on racial tension. His boss was Roger Wilkins, the nephew of Roy Wilkins. There's Muriel McCullough, the FBI, CIA, Memphis Police Department informant, who now works for the CIA. There's Martin King laying there with the towel over his face. Brother, I appreciate this pointer. This really helped out a lot. There's Ralph. There's Andy. Now, why is Jesse running up this way when everybody else came up that stairway and went that way? Because he had to make sure that room 316 and 317 didn't have no remnant of invader running out of it. Remember, he had that could have been the invaders running down that ramp right there. And when those people start that phony pointing, maybe the invaders might have went, no, down there. You understand? Because the invaders had what? Okay. Now, there's the maid. There's the cart. You see that cart? There are the wheels. You understand? At 6 o'clock, you ain't changing no beds and no motel? Check. Okay, let's let it run. There's a good shot at McCullough. There's Martin with the towel over his face. There's Martin again.
I looked up and didn't see him on the balcony, except that I saw his shoes sticking out the end of the balcony. All of the police, instead of going to where the shot came from, they were all coming to see what happened. So the picture on the balcony was us trying to say it came from over there.
Stop. There we go. That's good. There's that phony point. There's Jesse's head right there, making sure that he ran up there and gave a phony pointing. Now here's the problem with the people pointing. All of the people pointing were this way, looking up to Martin. The shots came from behind them, whether from the bushes or from the rooming house. It was behind them. Not one single person said they turned around and saw somebody at the rooming house. Those that even saw anybody, Solomon Jones, Earl Caldwell, New York, saw somebody moving in the bushes. Check. So how is it that those with their back turns suddenly become so definitive on something they didn't even see? You understand? It's not logical that they're primary sources for a focus. Okay, we can turn the lights down. It was a script, right? So, and Andy's recanted his false pointing.
And covered him from his neck down. Someone had a towel put to it. Blood was just everywhere.
I went out in that yard and I started walking. And all...
Now listen how mad he was.
All the hatred in my life, which was a lot of hatred, came up in me. I wanted to reach into the air and take molecules, protons, electrons, and make me a gun and kill me some white people. Because I thought those white
That's my man.
They came running close there. And I just, oh God, it's what kill. I want to kill, I'd have died to kill. And I started thinking,
watch this. After so much pressure being put on Jesse Jackson, Tim Russell of Meet the Press puts Jesse on April 5th, 1998, and takes him right back to that moment we just looked at. And who did Martin say speak for him that night? Who? Okay, listen to this. Turn it up.
Days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life, longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just will the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy.
You hear Jesse hollering, go ahead, go ahead.
I'm not fearing.
The loudest affirmator, you know.
My eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
Now,
As he concluded his speech, he walked behind, and there, as you see,
stop.
on the shoulders.
Now, what's happening? NBC, Meet the Press, the most watched Sunday news program, goes back to this moment that we're out teaching is a point of distrust and evidence of Martin's dislike to Jesse. They go right back to that spot, put him right on Rockefeller's NBC, toss that ball right up, and say, Jesse, now when I toss this ball up, I want you to stuff it home. So he puts a circle around Jesse's head and a circle around Martin's head, calls it close, and says, you were one of Martin's closest associates. What did Martin King say to you the night before he died? What's up, Black?
Louis Jackson. What did you say to Dr. King at that moment? You recall?
Yeah, back it up and get that sound in there. And Jesse gets to holding his eyes all up funny like in the negotiator. Gets to...
So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
As he concluded his speech, he walked behind, and there, as you see, tapped on the shoulders by one Jesse Louis Jackson.
Highlights two faces
At
and
that moment, you recall?
wipes Ralph out.
Difficult to express it because I think we were all crying. It's different in that the minister sitting at the right, Reverend Jim Hooks, Reverend Count Lovett, men were crying. It was kind of different. And like we realized he was under this burden, it was like he had released himself. So he tried not to come to the church and speak, like he acted as did come to speak. I said, and this was not with me. And we went together.
Stop.
And the crowd.
What did he say? He said, as you know, it was men crying, Ben Hooks and Billy Kyles. And as you know, he asked me to make that speech that night. And I said, I'd only make that speech if I can take Ralph with me. Now, here's the point. There would be no need to do no stupid stuff like that unless something else was going on that compelled the need to give him a chance to reconstruct history, to protect his face from the faceless people who got the facts. There would be no need to do this. It just wouldn't be a need. Okay, let's go back, let's hear it one more time, and then we'll pull that one out.
And Dr. King came. So he got up there without notice and gave a very formal...
No, you got to go back a little bit.
Definitive.
And this is the book, The Bureau, that William Sullivan wrote, where he says this Proctor, not Pierce.
Because I think we were all crying. It was different in that the minister sitting at the right, Reverend Ben Hooks, Reverend Count Lovett, men were crying. It was kind of different. And like we realized he was under this burden, like he had released himself. So he tried not to come to church to speak, and he actually asked me to come to speak. I said, on this Reverend Abernathy go with me. And we went together, and the crowd cheered, and the rap said, this is the thing.
Oh, yeah, listen. No, let that go. He says, Ralph says, Jesse, this is Martin crowd.
The church and called Bernard Lee and Dr. King.
And then he says, and I went and called Bernard Lee. Instead of saying, I said, Ralph, if you ain't going to make the speech, don't call Martin, I'll make the speech. He says, Ralph says, this ain't our crowd. And I said, let's call Martin.
That was just weeping and wailing. And yet eerie at the end. He almost foreshadowed his own demise.
Okay, this is what you do. Put it on fast forward. Just let it run. Yeah, just let that run a second. And now this is a key point. How hard have they tried to maintain and protect one of the people that they know was in on the assassination? And in 1977, this is from the book called The Man to See. It's by Evan Thomas, and it's on Edward Bennett Williams, a white man who used to own the Baltimore Orioles. If you read that book by Spike Lee on the Malcolm X movie, Captain Joseph talks about Elijah Muhammad going to Benny Williams to try to get the men out of jail who were allegedly accused of shooting Malcolm X. So he was known as a real fix-it white man who could fix a case in a minute. Big time white boy. Also chaired the president's Foreign Intelligence Advisory Board. It's like the outside intelligence people on the inside of the government. Even at one point rumored to be deep throat. That's right, yeah, just let it run. That's Posner. Stop. Let's see if we stop that. Let's go back a little bit. Let's show the face of Gerald Posner, the little mop-headed white boy. Right there. Here we go. Turn on. Let's go a little slow. Not there. That's the Mason Temple. Stop right there. That boy right there, Gerald Posner. He wrote this book right here, Killing the Dream. He wrote this book, Killing the Dream. And on the back of his book is that picture with Jesse, Martin, and Ralph, with Martin looking real puzzled. Can you see that? Okay. And in his book, Killing the Dream, he tries to help out Billy Kyles. Because in William Pepper's book, Orders to Kill, he says that Kyles is a Memphis Police Department informant. So Posner, he's going to defend Billy Kyles, and he puts this in his book. He says, Mike Webb. He said, Jordan gained the election? He says here, Kyles told, in his book, Orders to Kill, William Pepper raises the strong inference that Kyles might have been an FBI informant. It's degrading and insulting, quote, Kyles says, about the author Pepper's accusations. It casts an aspersion over my 40 years in the civil rights movement. I saw how Pepper operates. Now, he says that he's appalled that Pepper called him an FBI informant. Check. But what did I say Pepper called him?
An FBI informant?
No, I said that Pepper accused him in this book, Orders to Kill. See, you got to listen to them somatically. See, they're going to deny something, but they ain't going to deny what they were accused of. In Orders to Kill, this book, William Pepper says that Kyles, he talks to the police chief, Sam Evans, who was running things then. He said Kyles was one of my informants. Billy Kyles was an informant. Billy Kyles is the one that told the police that Martin King don't need no protection that day. Okay? Billy Kyles is the one that made sure Martin King had his tie on. It was the briefing at 4:30 after Ray was checking in at 4 o'clock that said that friendlies will not be wearing ties, coding the people who were on the government side in the assassination scenario would not be wearing a tie. One guy that night was in an argument with Martin King because he was just insisting that he was not going to wear a tie to go to dinner. Who was that? Jesse Jackson. So much so that the argument is what held Martin King on the balcony so the shooting could go down after Kyles stepped away so they could get a better shot. Check. But my point here is that Posner defends Kiles as not being an FBI informant. The only problem was he was accused of being a Memphis Police Department informant. I mean, to me and you, an informant is an informant. But when you're somatically denying something, make sure it matches the accusation. Check. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. Now, we just wanted to show Posner. Okay, you can let it fast forward. Okay, now, very important point. On Edward Bennett Williams. In 19, Edward Bennett Williams says that Jesse Jackson came to see him because he thought he was in trouble with the U.S. government for misappropriating $1 million of the Push XL money. Page, for the record, page 464. When the establishment turned on Jackson, he came to Williams. In 1977, Senator Hubert Humphrey had seen a piece on 60 Minutes describing Jackson's attempts to motivate inner-city youth to get an education. Humphrey urged HEW Secretary Joe Califano. Now that's important that he was head of HEW, now Department of Health and Human Services, because Joe Califano worked for the U.S. Army at the time Martin King was assassinated. So he was he was the legal advisor to the Secretary of the U.S. Army, and the Secretary of the U.S. Army was Cyrus Vance. His military attaché was Al Haig, and his legal counsel was Joe Califano. Not one single book on any King assassination or Kennedy assassination appropriately brings up the role of Vance, Haig, and Califano. So now Califano is on the inside, having been an assassin. Now he's going to help Jesse Jackson, having been an assassin. And Jesse Jackson goes to Califano. It says, Jackson gratefully asked Califano for $25,000 grant. Califano told him he needed, quote, $1 million. Now, how many white people you ever met? You asked them for a quarter and they gave you $100. You ever met a white person do that? So it's strange. Jesse would walk into the government, ask for a $25,000 grant. Califano told him he needed $1 million and then proceeded to give the black leader $6 million. Of the $6 million, he misappropriated $1 million. Now the feds got him for misappropriation of funds. He's $1 million missing. Reagan becomes the president. Jesse gets scared. He asks Edward Bennett Williams to talk to Reagan to cut him a deal on the $1 million. Edward Bennett Williams says, when the federal auditors asked to look at Jackson's books early in the Reagan administration, they found chaos. Jackson's organization, Push XL, see, you saw that other thing said Rainbow Coalition. When Push had to pay back the money, he left the leaned organization, L-I-E-N, lean, like lean on your debt. He left the organization that had a lien on it and went to Washington and set up another organization. When Push paid back the lien, he leaves Washington and sets up Push Rainbow Coalition. Check? Okay, because you got to watch him. He's a magician. But the white man is his Merlin. Jackson's organization, Push XL, was unable to account for $1 million of the money. The matter was referred to the Justice Department. Jackson came to Williams claiming that he was a victim of a vendetta by the Republicans. The case was dragging on, producing unflattering newspaper stories at a time when Jackson was trying to raise money for his 1988 presidential campaign. And Williams says that when he talked with the Reagan administration, he said quite the contrary. They were not only not trying to arrest Jackson, but had favorable viewpoints of him, so much so that they cut a deal to pay back $550,000 of the misappropriated money at $125,000 a year. And again, as I said earlier, that's when Jesse left Chicago, went to D.C. Just a case in point. The only point to that is no black man would ever be allowed to pay back a misappropriated grant when Abernathy's son just went down for $1,500. Now, I just want to keep Keep that in line. Now, let's go back to something else very critical. Washington Post story. This story is dated July 12, 1999. And the story, which I've now collaborated from the declassified documents that I have, FBI examined private life of King's successor. It says that after King died, the FBI began to investigate Coretta Scott King, Ralph Abernathy, and Andy Young. They emphatically said, we cannot trust these three, and we must do everything we can. They dropped the investigation of Coretta. They then went on to do to Andy and to do to Ralph what they had done to Martin. That was on April 12th that they signed the memo. On April 12th, I'm going to show you Jesse Jackson announcing that every time there's a crucifixion, there's a resurrection, saying that he is the resurrected man. Okay, what's that other tape you got there, Mr. Brown? Let's put this one in. Okay, let's put that one in and take it backwards a little bit. There's no other tape that back there that you have? And that one is still rolling? Okay. Now, Jesse's a strong proponent of the no Raul theory. And again, I showed you when I was here last.
We were totally dependent on Dr.
Yeah, turn the lights down. Now run it backwards. Run it backwards. That's Jackie saying that when the assassination went down, Jesse called her. And Jesse said, Jackie, Martin's dead. You're going to hear about it, but Martin's dead. And Jackie, she says, well, what are we going to do now, Jesse? She didn't say, how's Coretta? She didn't say, how's everybody else? She didn't say, is anybody hurt? She said, Jesse, what are we going to do now? Something you want to tell me? Okay, gotcha. Okay, and in this picture, now, yeah, this is Jesse announcing he's available for leadership. But just keep going back, because I want to put this in context. Oh, there's the white man, Don Rose. He's very important, because Don Rose, the white man, just stop it. Freeze. Oh, right there. Hold him up against the wall. Don Rose, great. His name, you all don't know him. I'm from Chicago. Don Rose is the white man that you see when you black to get the white media to report on you. You don't go call NBC, you don't call CBS, you call Don Rose, and he gets the media. When I was attacked and fired out of the mayor's office in Chicago, it was Don Rose who coordinated the white media's attack on me, which came May 1st, the Illuminati birthday, 1988. Don Rose is the man that Jesse Jackson left town to meet up, who put him on the Today Show the next morning after Martin was killed to start the discussion that Jesse is the heir apparent to Martin King. And you'll hear him say, I told Jesse, and we reinforced each other, that Jesse was the likely choice. Well, excuse me, Mr. White Man, are you in the SCLC? And doesn't it seem odd, Mr. White Man, that outside of the FBI, you're the only other white man that feels it's your job to pick the black man to run the black organization? See, it takes a lot of arrogance for me to stand here and say who's going to be head of the next ADL. Lieutenants of Satan. That would be like, well, you ain't even in the group. You can't even vote them in. But everybody don't know Don Rose. He's another one of those white people of the Jewish religion that got their fingerprints on the King assassination. And you don't know him. There used to be something in Chicago called Triple C. And Don Rose was the front man behind Al Raby, who was one of Martin King's associates, one of Harold Washington's associates, who died writing the resolution for the Black Jewish Coalition condemning Steve Coakley on November 25th, 1989. Al Raby dies laying on the resolution condemning me. Whatever there was struck his ass dead with a heart attack at 155 pounds, 5'9". Okay, now let's keep going backwards. Let's just keep going backwards, because I'm going to show you Jesse in the courtyard. Now remember, we saw the people falsely pointing. For the record, in this picture is the man Raul, who's picked out of a lineup by a white woman named Grable, and Raul is standing next to Lee Harvey Oswald, who's standing next to Clay Shaw. Point being that the people who killed in the Kennedy came around for the king. Okay? Same squad. Notice Jesse, does he have a tie on? Now remember we heard, stop right there. That's Calvin Moore. Oh, stop right there. Look at Jesse, no tie on. That ain't important yet. That's Ben Branch. Jesse wouldn't wear a tie that night. The briefing to the military men is friendlies will not be wearing ties. Ralph had on a tie. Martin was made to put his tie on.
And I'm going to give you guys
but
time
Jesse
to come into the
emphatically
conversation.
Wasn't going to wear no tie.
Take your time. Everybody get comfortable. Grab a seat. And because we are about to start our Powernomics conversation. We normally have Powernomics Thursday, as you guys know. But this week we're actually doing...
Hi, I'm Dr. Aaron Spingard. And
Give me a
today
second
we're
here.
talking
Hold on.
about
Okay, here we go. Let me turn this thing off. There we go. And today we're having Powernomics Friday because Dr. Claude Anderson is... because we are coming to New York for the investment seminar that we're doing on Sunday. We had to move the date a little bit, but we are going to keep the thing going. And so everybody come in and get comfortable, and we shall begin our Black Powernomics conversation right now. So first and foremost, I want to welcome everybody and greet some of you that just came in. I see Delvon, see Anna, Jones, Cupcake Soldier, Tim Burchett, Jamal Brewer from Black Knowledge. Everybody, make sure you follow the Black Knowledge page on Facebook. It is that is our black version of CNN, our black version of CBS. Jamal Brewer is the superhero that created that page. It has 700,000 people on it, 700,000 black people just like you. So go to Facebook, look up Black Knowledge. Stacy Doe, Miss Balance, David Salmon, Jones. I see Chelsea, Inglewood, what's going on from Ontario, Canada. Shout out your city. Everybody shout out the city that you're from. I see Brown Skin, Sweet Girl, Aboriginal, L, Chris Williams, Elijah, Levi. Hello, everybody. Shout out your city. Let's see. Gravel is from Philadelphia. I see Aboriginal L is from Chicago. I see London and Virginia. Okay, so let's get started here. First and foremost, I'd like to say hello to my friend, Dr. Claude Anderson is the author of the books Powernomics, Black Labor, White Wealth, The Black History Reader, and Dirty Little Secrets 1 and 2. How you doing today, Dr. Anderson?
Oh, as I told you before, fair to middling.
All right. And you look great, and everybody's always asking me about you all the time. And I want everybody, please give Dr. Anderson a digital greeting. Just give him a digital hello. And also make sure you always, I hope that you guys, if you agree, if you could always just, make sure you throw in some signs of respect because Dr. Anderson has paved the way for so many of us to do what we do right now. And actually, before we begin the conversation, one last thing I'd like to ask everybody to do is if you're in the house, please hit that thumbs up button, and that notification bell is really important because you'll be notified when we go live. So on the count of 3, everybody hit the thumbs up button and the notification bell, and then type Black Power in the chat to let me know that you did it. So on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Everybody hit thumbs up, hit the notification bell, type Black Power in the chat. So let's get it started. In fact, actually, or you can type Powernomics. That'd probably be, if instead type Powernomics, or type them both, whichever one you want to do. All right, so Dr. Anderson, let's get started. I want to ask you this. Let's just start with something that you and I were talking about in terms of some of the political movements that are going on. We got the 2020 elections happening next year. Black folks, of course, everybody wants the vote from black people. And you are an expert on many things involving the black community, particularly Powernomics-related topics, as well as things like reparations, which are hot-button issues right now. I'd like to ask you this, I guess, to get a general overview. How do things look in your mind in terms of, the odds of our people obtaining reparations? And also, what is your perception about how we've gone so far in terms of how we've organized that fight for reparations? What are your thoughts?
Well, it's going to be hard to get reparations, but we're on the right track. and let me set a context for it. Notice how in the last 3 or 4 years, there's a major emphasis being placed on slavery. Everybody's talking about slavery. Everybody's talking about reparations. And everybody's beginning to focus on black history. But that's no accident. You see, I devoted 60 years of my life, Dr. Watkins, went way back when everybody said, Dr. Hamms, you're just radical. You're just crazy. Why are you focused on that? We got social integration and civil rights. I said, that's not going to help you. That has nothing in the world to do with it, but with improving the quality, the quality of life of black folk. Excuse me. Now, that cannot improve the quality of life of black folk. They said, why not? I said, because you're not focusing on the issue you should be focusing on. And I said, I'm going to leave government and I'm going to start writing books, giving speeches, set up a black think tank, putting out over 100,000 newsletters, filing lawsuits out of my own pocket to fight for black folk, to get black folk on the right track. I said, this social integration and this civil rights movement is taking black folk the wrong way, taking them backwards. And you're looking for the wrong thing. I said, what are you looking for? Again, they said, well, we're looking for social justice. I said, black folk don't need no damn social justice. They need economic justice. And I said, white folk have made social justice into integration. That's a waste of time. Anybody who knows that if you're an out-group, Dr. Watkins, and you're a pariah out-group, black folk are a pariah out-group that's not in the mainstream. You're outside and underneath the system. You're outside of it. It doesn't make a damn bit of good, Dr. Watkins. Whether you're in good times or bad times, nothing is going to appreciate the quality of life of black folk in the mainstream. You're going to stay in the bottom. That's why, as I told you in the Black History Reader, in the first question there, that there's a social construct that black folk are locked into. They're locked on the bottom. That's why I predicted 60 years ago that what would happen to them after the year 2013 and 2015. They would become a permanent underclass. That's why the United States Department of Commerce issued a proclamation and a pronouncement in the 2014 saying that black people are on the bottom, underneath everything. And so you start talking about the political issues right now. Black folk are watching a form of entertainment. All these political issues right now that's going on, watching about what Trump, who gives a damn about what Trump is doing? That's an absolute waste of time. That's a form of entertainment for the white society. It's not going to have any measurable impact on black folk. But unfortunately, they got all the black elected officials and the civil rights leaders participating in the sham because there are 350 million white Donald Trumps in America. That's why nothing has changed for black folks since slavery. Why you got to worry about what Donald Trump? You still need to worry about what's going to happen to black folk. And the worst part about that, if you don't understand that, if you're a permanent underclass outside and underneath the system, where you own and control less than 1/2 or 1% of anything of value, you don't control a damn thing. Why would you on the bottom of a pile be worried about what's happened to the people on the top of the pile? If Donald Trump and these political figures are playing games and they want in the form of entertainment, whether in the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, you can't impact it. You can't stop. They want to destroy the world. Let them destroy it. You can't stop them. You can't. To be able to change the conditions, you must have power to change people's attitudes and the conditions. Black folk have no power at all. The only power they have is the one power that they have not even gotten control of that. You know what that power is, Dr. Watkins?
What is that?
The one thing that they do own, they can't even use that to empower themselves. You know what it is? It's their labor. It's their labor. White folks still control black labor. That is black labor is what gave white folk all the wealth. And so so what I'm saying now, first thing, forget about everything you see on the TV and reading the newspaper. That has nothing to do with black folk. This is probably the first time and the last time black folk are going to ever have a chance to get out from on the bottom. We need to be focusing all of our time and energy and saying, how do we take advantage of all this confusion and try to come out of a ditch to try to own and control? That is the key, own and controlling resources. We own and control nothing now of any consequence. And so now I'll go a little further, but specific, but I didn't want to talk too long on one point. But I want to set the context that right now don't pay any attention to all this stuff on the radio and TV and in the newspapers about politicians, about who's going to get elected. And black folks say, well, we're going to put in the Democrats or Republicans. They must understand neither the Democrats nor the Republicans have ever done one damn single thing specifically and solely to help black people. Black people don't understand that when they were enslaved, they didn't belong to any political party. For 360 years, black folk did not belong to any political party. And guess what they got? They got screwed over and enslaved. They got classified as 3/5 of a human being, equal to a field animal. They were denied their humanity. They were lynched, castrated, exploited, misused, abused, and denied a right to own property, anything else. That was when they didn't belong to any party. Now, come about 1850, late 50s. Now, after slavery ended, here comes another change, because during slavery, guess who was doing all the enslaving from point 1 to point 2 up to 1850? It was the Democrats. The Democrats were the ones who did all the enslaving. From the forming of the country in 1789 up to 1860, the Democrats were the people that were enslaving black folk. They were the people that were castrating and lynching you. They were lynching one black every 2 damn days in the country. Now, when slavery ended, guess what? Black folk then got that first chance to enjoy and get engaged in politics. So what do? They joined the Republican Party, because they said the Democratic Party is the one that been enslaved us. And Lincoln, he's a Republican now. They just formed a Republican Party. Let's join that. So they joined the Republican Party in 1860. And the Republican Party tried to help them for about 10 or 15 years. Only 10 or 15 years the Republican Party tried to help them. That's the period they call Reconstruction, okay? From 1860 up to about 1870, 1875. And that was it. And then what happened? The Republicans started screwing over black folk. What did they do then? They Jim Crow segregated them and put them back into semi-slavery. So the Republican Party then took over where the Democratic Party left off and then doing black folk in. And so black folk now belong to the Democratic Party, almost 100%. And the Democratic Party screwed over black folk up until about 1948 to 1950. All blacks belong to the Republican Party. And guess what? They got nothing but Jim Crow segregation and castration and lynching out of the Republican Party. Now, after the Civil Rights Movement, guess what happened? Black folk got free again from political identification. By the 1960s, they said, well, what we'll do, we got messed over by the Democrats. What we'll do now, we'll get out of the Republican Party and let's go back and become a Democrat. And when the rednecks found out blacks would become Democrats, guess what? The redneck Confederate states on the map, they switched parties again and became the Republican Party. So now the Dixiecrats, the Confederate redneck states, who started off as enslaving black folk, they switched parties twice. Now they're a Republican Party. So the final analysis is, I don't care what black folk want to do, what party they want to belong to, the whites are always going to switch parties to make sure they stay away from black folks, so they owe black folk nothing. And that's why in the history of this nation, not a Democrat in a public office, neither president from the Democratic Party or Republican Party has ever done a damn thing specifically and solely to correct the conditions imposed on blacks by centuries of slavery and Jim Crow semi-slavery. And that's where you start talking about reparations at that point.
All right, everybody who's watching, I'm speaking with Dr. Claude Anderson. He's the author of the books Powernomics, Black Labor, White Wealth, The Black History Reader, and Dirty Little Secrets 1 and 2. His website, if you want to check out his books and subscribe to his YouTube channel, is powernomics.com. That's powernomics.com. So everybody, please take a second and go take a look at powernomics.com. I'm broadcasting from New York City, Midtown Manhattan. We are doing a financial Juneteenth investment seminar tomorrow. I'll be joined by Mary Dean, aka the Wall Street Lawyer, and we're going to basically break down all the things you need in order to build family wealth for the next generation. We're going to teach you how to get off the grid, how to overcome whether it's student loans or multiple streams of income or whatever it is you're trying to do. We have unique solutions that are proven through scientific study to help you to improve your economic condition. And the number one thing I'll say to everybody just watching is you have to do something different in order to get something different. If you do what everybody else is doing, you're going to get what everybody else is getting. So anybody who wants to join us in New York, don't try to just show up at the door because we may not have any passes. It looks like we might sell out. So you can go to drboycenewyork.com. That's drboycenewyork.com. It's on Sunday morning. We're going to go all day long, 8 hours long. So everybody hit the thumbs up button, by the way, if you haven't hit the thumbs up button. So let me ask everybody a question, then I'm going to ask Dr. Anderson a question. So give me a yes or no. Give me a yes or no if you all feel that, whether the Democrats or Republicans get elected in the next election, that's going to make a difference in the state of the black community. I mean, a lot of people are afraid of a Donald Trump presidency. They feel the whole world's going to fall apart. Do you feel that if the Democrats get elected in the next election, that will substantially improve the condition for the black community? I see Todd says no, Angelique no, Jimmy, Ben, and Jude say no. Ron 2000 says he got deported. There was no movement. Okay, I don't know what that is. I guess y'all having a conversation over here. T-Mac says no. Catherine, Mr. Bengodi, no. B-Man, Carlo, Matthias, Dual Victory, Fred Everett. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of no's. Terry Jones said hell no. Okay, so Shara says no. Okay, so Dr. Anderson, what do you think, when you're seeing just so much energy, right? I have friends on Instagram and on social media, and all they do is they tweet about Trump all day long. All they do is they talk about Trump. And you struck a chord with me when you said that this is all just entertainment. That this is, when I think about entertainment, I think about something that we get emotionally invested in that doesn't have any real impact on our lives. So I know, because I know a lot of people are mad because Trump wants to build a wall. And I said, unless he's building a wall in a black neighborhood, I don't give a shit. It don't mean I don't care. I don't care if he builds the wall. I don't care if he don't build the wall. That ain't got nothing to do with me and my people. What do you think is the mechanism and the process that they use to get us so emotionally caught up in what white folks are doing? Or is it because we just love to serve other people? We, like you said, the people on the bottom serve the people on the top. So we feel it's our job to go and help these wealthy white people to secure power because we earn our meritorious manumission. Well, what's going on with that?
Well, you hit it dead on the head already. I can just repeat what you just said. That started coming out after the Great Depression. Where, see, black folk, the only time black folk made substantial progress economically in the country was doing what most people don't know was doing Jim Crow slavery. Did you know that? That's the only time black folk were making strong economic progress in this country was when white folk forced them to do what they should have been doing instinctively. When blacks got out of slavery, Dr. Watkins, from that point up until after the Great Depression, 1930s, black folk understood that the primary thing was not social, it was economics. That's why they were asking for the 40 acres and a mule and $100. They wanted to own and control something. And black folk took a little bit of money they had. And I'm going to come back, and when I finish, come back to the 1860, they asked me about it, about the Freedmen Bureau. But then when black folks said, we're going to get together and start owning, they started buying as much land they could because we got to own land and hold on to it. And between the end of slavery up to about the end of the Depression, 1930s, 1920s, black folk had acquired 20 million acres of land. Did you know that? Those poor slaves, black ex-slaves who didn't have any education, they've been denied the right to learn how to read and write. They learned that they had to own and control something. So by 1920, they acquired over 20 million acres of land in the United States. And in terms of businesses, they didn't have any education, but guess what? White folk had forced them to do what they were unwilling to do right now, and what these civil rights leaders are misleading black folk into. Those white folk forced blacks to live with each other, to support each other, care about each other under segregation. They started building their own businesses. Black folks started building their own businesses. Those black, poor, uneducated blacks knew that they were the only people on earth that have been denied the rights to industrialize. Nobody, every other group of human beings on earth have gone through the Industrial Revolution. When the Industrial Revolution started in Europe, blacks were enslaved in the 1700s. When the Industrial Revolution went through the United States in the 1800s, they were still in semi-slavery. Blacks have never learned how to build industries. But those poor blacks coming out of slavery said, we're going to get land and start building businesses. And in proportional terms, Dr. Watkins, for every 100,000 people during that period of time that were black, blacks owned 20 times more businesses than they have today. I'm going to say it to you again. For every 100,000 blacks that were in the United States during that bad period from after slavery up to the 1930s, blacks owned 20 times more business than they have today. Those blacks didn't have any education, but guess what? They were building factories. They were building hair factories. They were building broom factories, mattress factories. They started trying to build railroad lines in Jacksonville, Florida, and out in Little Rock, Arkansas. They had started a shipyard in Baltimore. They had their own movie theaters. They had about 15 or 20 movie theaters at that point in time. Every black community had a movie theaters. They had a chain all the way across the United States called the Lincoln and Lafayette Theaters. Blacks had their own restaurants, hotels. Blacks were learning how to practice group economics. They said, even though you white folk have never given us anything, we're going to start bringing everything together and aggregate it and practice vertical integration and building and be able to compete. And that's the only time they ever got a chance to do that. But here's what happened. That by the end of the Depression, when the Depression wiped out everybody else, it wiped out a lot of these black businesses. And then your civil rights leaders jumped in on it, and your black ministers jumped in, and your black politicians jumped in and say, hey, you blacks don't have to rebuilding more businesses. Why don't you just simply, by 1938, 1939, why don't you just simply go for universality? Get away from all that blackness. You don't have to own anything. Get away from that blackness and start looking for universality, which meant social integration. And so at that point in time, blacks didn't want to rebuild anything. What they did then, they asked whites to come in to their segregated communities and start setting up businesses. And one of the first groups they invited in were the Jews coming into the United States at that time. From the end of the First World War up until that point, almost 30 million people immigrants came in. They invited them all in to come set up businesses in the black communities. And so that's how we got social integration in effect. But at that point in time, blacks learned how to chase social integration rather than rebuilding their communities and everything.
Interesting. And it's real funny because we really seem to still have a mindset that says that when people come into our communities and set up businesses, like we will thank them for that. Like we really feel like they're serving us. I don't know if you know this, Dr.
That's the craziest ass thing I've ever heard in my life. Nobody's that damn dumb unless they got a license, a certificate based on stupidity. Go ahead, though.
well, let me tell you this, Dr. Anderson. I just saw an advertisement. Well, not an ad, but it's an article about Popeye's Chicken. Popeye's Chicken is getting ready to release their chicken sandwich. And last time, black people broke the internet so they could go give $100 million to Popeye's Chicken. We can't raise money. When I go out and try to raise money for a school or for some sort of community project, you can't get that money. But Popeyes came out with a chicken sandwich, and they raised $100 million overnight so they could sell us refried diabetes. And basically, they just recently announced that the sandwich is coming back in November. And so Popeyes went out on a hiring spree where they went out hiring a bunch of new employees. They started making major capital investments to prepare this time for the fact that they know for a fact that when black people show up for those chicken sandwiches, it's going to be tens of millions of dollars just flowing out of the black community in exchange for chicken. And, and that makes me think about what you always talk about with the doctrine of unequal exchange, that, you're giving them real hardcore cash and they're giving you fried chicken, which you can make by yourself. We make pretty good chicken in the black community. And so what are your thoughts, when I tell you a story like that, when I tell you what Popeye's Chicken is about to pull off, and they use interesting marketing tactics. They actually have a black lady that they will put on the commercial and she would use possessive terms like my chicken, my recipe, my formula. It turned out this lady doesn't own anything in Popeye's Chicken. She's not an owner of the business. She doesn't make the chicken. It's not her recipe. She's just an actor. What are your thoughts on everything I just shared with you?
Well, that's pretty common. See, because black folk were educated to be able to be dependent on other people. That's one of the primary principles of enslaving a person. A slave is acculturated and brainwashed into being able to serve, S-E-R-V, serve the master, serve the other dominant group, to be at their beck and call, to do what they have to do, to see the world through their eyes. Blacks were trained to see the world through the eyes of whites. And so consequently, they were taught also not to own and control anything, because up until the Civil War, blacks were classified as property. And guess what? Property cannot own property. Property cannot have any value in and of itself. And so consequently, blacks never learned how to practice group economics, or what you call the property of unequal exchange. They never learned that. And so after the Great Depression and these civil rights people said, let's move away from our blackness. No more blackness. No more. Let's move away from W.B. Du Bois talking about black politics and Marcus Garvey talking about black economics, and Carter G. Woodson talking about black education, and Elijah Muhammad talking about black religion, and black artists and entertainers talking about the Harlem Renaissance, about blackness. They said, let's get away from all that blackness. And that when they started that, blacks started downhill. That killed the black folk movement in this country. So now blacks don't practice group economics anymore. We used to have practice group economics. We don't practice it now. So 98 cents 98 cents out of every dollar that touches a black man's hand or a black woman's hand in the United States, he rushes to give it straight to a white person. Straight to it. It doesn't change. It doesn't never touch another black hand. Now that is devastating. Devastating when you got a population who would spend 98 cents out of every dollar, puts it in everybody else's hand. That is a form of voluntary impoverishment. They volunteer and impoverish their own people and enrich others. That's why right now that in a given right now 90. Let me be more specific. About 96 cents out of every dollar goes into the white community from black hands. About another 2 to 3% of that goes into 2% goes into Asians, Arabs, and Hispanic businesses in the black neighborhoods. Only 2% of blacks, 100% goes into black hands. What that means is that's why, now watch this, it's just the opposite with the other groups. The other groups, guess what? They don't spend any money in the black communities. They go to take money out. When you put in a Popeye restaurant or a McDonald's or Burger King into a black community, they're not going in there to give you money. They're going to take money out. You're going into a franchise agreement, which means that the person that owns that restaurant, he gets an income off it. But but whites push their products into a black community and bring the money out. So that every business in the black neighborhood right now is owned and controlled by somebody other than black folk, 98%. That means it's owned by Arabs, Hispanics, Asians, or whites. That means that every night, Dr. Watkins, you're in economics, every night, and just think about this, think how devastating this is biologically, psychologically, and economically. Every night at 7 o'clock to 7:30, every black neighborhood in America goes bankrupt. On a regular as a clock, I can set my watch. I can tell time by watching every night as a black community goes bankrupt. It stays bankrupt until the next morning when the sunrise come up and the people got those businesses in the black neighborhoods come and open up the stores again. Then black folk line up to go down to the local store, the local gas station, and buy something from somebody other than their own people. Nobody's that damn dumb. But by the same token, because everybody else is boycotting black communities, they're boycotting you. They're just bringing products in, taking your money out and boycotting you. That's why as old as you are right now, you've never in your life have you ever seen, well, let me go back. Let me say it another way. As soon as a black person gets paid, he runs straight from his office or his job straight to a store owned by someone else and spends that money. Now, but have you ever seen a white person, for instance, or an Asian, an Arab, or Hispanic person on an evening rushing to get into a black neighborhood and buy something owned by a black person, produced by black people? Ain't never gonna happen. Never happen. That's why blacks keep impoverishing themselves. And you keep telling them, why don't you learn how to spend your money with your own people? They say, well, Dr. Elson, I ain't gonna spend no money with no Dr. Boyce Watkins because I'm not gonna make that Negro rich, give him any money. He's selling them damn books. I ain't buying his books. I'll buy the white man books. I ain't buying that nigga's books. And so, I'm telling you, and nobody ever taught the civil rights leaders and the black politicians never taught them. Why don't you learn what we call the cost-benefit analysis? Where do you get the biggest benefit? By spending your money with your own people, by buying Dr. Watkins books versus buying a white book and putting the money back and keeping the money in your own community and circulating it, and what Dr. Ennis say in Powernomics, making that money bounce 8 to 12 times in the black hands. That every time I got to have money to spend, I'm going to find me a black person to spend it with and tell that black person, you put it in another black person's hand. Now, Jews teach their kids that in the synagogues, starting in the early grades. The Jew will go into those synagogues and say, look, tell those Jewish kids that whatever you want to buy in life, you remember this, there's always a Jew who produces it, manufacture it, and sell it. That's who you buy it from. Buy it from your own people first. And that's why here's the result of that group economic phenomena. Hispanic money bounces 6 to 7 times before it leaves their hands and goes to anyone else. White money bounces 8 to 12 times before it goes to anyone else. Arab and Asian money bounces 13 and 14 times before it goes to anybody else's hands. Jewish money bounces 18 times before it goes in anybody's hand. Guess what? These Negroes' money doesn't bounce once. Okay? But I'll give you a long story. That was a long story. You didn't ask for that long story.
You made an excellent point. Does everybody understand what Dr. Anderson is saying? Give me a yes or no if you get what he's saying. If you understand what we're talking about here. We're talking about changing habits. It's and by the way, I want everybody to know, if you just came in, I'm talking to Dr. Claude Anderson. He's the author of the books Powernomics, Black Labor, White Wealth, The Black History Reader, Dirty Little Secrets 1 and 2. If you want to bounce your dollars toward his think tank and toward your own family's prosperity and your own family's understanding, go to powernomics.com. Powernomics.com. That should be your first library. That should be the place where you get your first books for your kids. I gave all my kids copies of Powernomics, and they're all big fans of Dr. Claude Anderson because I don't see this anywhere else. And also, I want to say thank you very much to Menatzer, who just made a donation. Thank you very much for making a donation in the super chat. If you have a business that you want me to mention, I'll shout out your business. If you do a little super chat support, and it lights up in a color where I'll see your comment, see your question, or also I can see your business. If you got a URL for your business, I'll shout out your business. And in fact, actually, I want everybody to kind of hear just, what Dr. Anderson is talking about. I want, that's the theory of what we're trying to do as people. Now let's put some of that into action, because and I want to share this example if you guys want to understand this, if I may, because what Dr. Anderson said struck a chord with me. I don't know if any of y'all have black businesses and have dealt with black people who seem to have a much bigger issue with a black business than with a white business. I have seen, and sometimes you see right here on the internet, you'll see Negroes become, Sherlock Holmes, CSI, private detectives in terms of trying to figure out if a black business owner is a scammer, but they say nothing about white business owners. I've yet to see any of these Negroes run around, attacking black businesses. I've never seen any of them go after Popeye's chicken to say, well, how much diabetes, heart disease, colon cancer, whatever else do they put in their chicken when they're selling it to black people? Like, who are these white people that are getting all this money? What are they doing with their money? They never do that. But they will go deep. They will do an anal probe on a black business owner because he's selling a $20 book, or like even right now, Dr. Anderson. And I like transparency. I think the answer is transparency and shining light on stuff. Light, sunlight, light is not just power. It's not just warmth. It's also a disinfectant where you can kill the bacteria. So I'm gonna shine some light on some economic issues so that we can kill some of the bacteria in our community, some of the rodents, some of the viruses that we have that are destroying our ability to progress. Here's what I'm doing. Now, you guys know right now, for example, we're in New York right now. We're doing an investment seminar in New York on Sunday. In New York, this is not free. This is not free. Our lowest cost ticket is a child's ticket for $99 or an adult's ticket for $199. The prices go up based on what services that you want. We have a 100% money back guarantee if you're not happy for any reason. We rarely, if ever, have to give any refunds because everybody loves the event. Like literally, Dr. Anderson, when we do surveys, customer surveys, 98% of our customers who've gone to these events have said this was well worth it. This was better than college. This is the best I ever got. Like, it bothers me that I have to go that hard because it's almost like if you're black and you run a business and you are not perfect, then people will call you a dirty, dangerous, scamming Negro and a liar and a crook and all this other. And I'm sitting there thinking, you got white people that are robbing you in broad daylight, and you ain't said nothing about that. We're providing you something that we know is proven scientifically to shift the trajectory of your family for the next 100 years. And you're going to say something about that, but you have nothing to say about all these white businesses that are selling you poison, that are taking your money and running. And here's the other thing. This is the other thing. Again, I told you I'm shining the light so we can kill the bacteria. We can kill the viruses with this. When y'all spend this money on these events, let me tell you where that money's going. To run this event in New York, those dollars are bouncing right back into the community because we had to spend $23,000 at a black-owned hotel in New York City. We have thousands of dollars we spent on black team members, black employees that we brought up to help us run this event. We had to spend thousands of dollars, whether it's on shipping and all kinds of other administrative expenses to make this thing go off, to make this thing happen. And then on top of that, every month we pay tens of thousands of dollars to black people and black businesses to run the Black Business School. Everything's black, 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 black. But it's hard to make something very, very black, extra black, super black, because there are black people who hate the word black. when they hear the word black, that is a trigger to make them say black must be bad. Black is dirty. Black is low quality. Black is substandard. When I was teaching white kids at Syracuse University, I didn't have to deal with none of that. They paid $50,000 a year to learn from people like me, and were happy to pay it because they understood the importance of investing in their families and their communities and all these other things. You bring this to the black community, you got to go through a whole nother procedure, and it don't matter. Some people are never happy. So I really almost feel like we have a part of our community that's almost like we talk about an infection. We've been infected with white supremacy, infected with this idea that black is inferior, that black is evil, black is bad. And like any infection that's going through the body, sometimes you got to amputate, And so what I did, Dr. Anderson, when I told you, because you guys, some of y'all have seen, the vitriol and the negativity and the craziness, like the fighting over the whole reparation. How are you going to fight over whether or not we should get reparations? That don't even make no damn sense. But people wanting to fight all the time. And I told y'all, we're not fighting black people this year. We're not doing it. We're amputating. We're going to amputate. If you think that what is going on here, if you looking at everything we're doing, all the hundreds of thousands of people that we have elevated, all these people that we have helped, and you can't see nothing but negative there because your jealousy, your insecurity, your unhappiness, or your inferiority causes you to walk away with negativity in your mind, not negativity in your mind, then we're going to amputate you. I really think that we have to amputate and move the ship forward because we've got some black folks that are not as bad as white people, Dr. Anderson. They are worse than white people. They're not as bad because white people don't get in the way when we're trying to build, when we're trying to grow, when we're trying to invest, when we're trying to learn. It's the black people. That's the craziest thing. So Dr. Anderson, please feel free to jump in.
Let me jump in where you are because you see, you're right on point and you covered it pretty well. But by talking about the quality of the product, that blacks see, I wouldn't even stop there saying, well, the quality of the white product might be bad or this is bad. What you should say, it doesn't make any damn difference. It doesn't make any difference. Whether the quality, whether or not white chicken is bad versus black chicken. Black folks should say this. It should be called based on a cost-benefit analysis and saying, where am I supposed to be spending my money? Period. Because I'm in a competitive relationship between groups of people trying to survive. And that means that as an example, do I spend my money with an Asian, Arab, or Hispanic, or do I spend it with my own people so that money can bounce around 8 to 12 times before it leaves? That's critically important. And they need to quit and they need to accept this, that there are black people who can go in business. They can sell a product that might be inferior to the white product. Who gives a damn what is inferior? If you're going into business, if you're going to start to become a competitive group, you got to build industries vertically ordered, provide a quality service. If you're going to go in, what you should say is that I'm going to buy. I got a black store here that's selling chicken and bread, and I got a white store here selling bread. Now, the black store's bread is a little harder, not as quite as fresh as the white bread, and it costs 5 cents more. Or do I go to the white store and put my money and buy that white bread that might be a little fresher? I can get a nickel cheaper. That's bullshit to do that. We should say, no, I don't give a damn what the white store, the quality of it is and what it's costing. I'm going to my own people's store and I'm going to buy it from him. But I'm going to talk to the owner and say, now we're under the Powernomics principles. We're going to fight to compete for economic principles and economic endowments in this country, period. And what I want you to do, I'm going to buy your product. Yes, your bread might not be as fresh as the guy next door. I'm going to buy it from you, and I'm going to give you a short time to be able to improve the quality of your bread and get your prices down, give you a chance to get your business stabilized, fixed with a foundation. And I'll give you 6 months. I'll buy from you for the next 4 or 5 months, so that money will bounce. That's the first thing. And secondly, when you spend my money with you, you find another person that you're buying your ingredients from and buy it from him. Make sure he's black. That's the way they play. That's why Jews said, I ain't spending no money in no black neighborhoods. When blacks came here to Washington, D.C. and went down to 8th Street to the Asian town and want to sell products to the Asians. I might have told you this story before. They met with the Asian merchants, said, we want to sell some products to you Asians. And the Asians said, okay, we're listening. He said, what we want to do is sell you some of the same products you got on your shelves in those Asian stores. And what we'll do is that we'll sell it to you for 25% cheaper than what you're paying presently. And the Asians say, we appreciate that, but we're not interested. He said, well, we'll sell it to you and deliver it first and faster. They said, we're still not interested. And so finally, I know this group of blacks that was talking to these merchants, and the Asian merchant said, well, but then the black said to the Asian merchant, well, why aren't you interested in buying our product that we blacks are selling to you Asians, since your Asian town is inside of a black city, what's called Chocolate City. Why don't you buy our products from us? Especially if we're going to sell it to you, it's just as good and it's cheaper. And the Asians told them, they said, you blacks don't understand. It's not the price, it's not the quality. It says that we as Asians, we only buy from our own people. See, only you black folk would buy from any and everybody. We don't play that as Asians. That's right here in Washington, D.C. We aren't buying from anybody else. That's why when, Carl Nelson on the radio station, Carl Nelson down in Miami, he did the same thing. I said, man, he's out there talking to one Chinese guy that's the biggest seller of products, food services into the Caribbean islands, those black islands. Carl went down there to had a Mystic Radio. It was owned by Stevie Wonder. And Carl went over to sell him some radio time to this Chinese guy, a multi-billionaire. He said, I want you this multi-billionaire showed Charles Asian billionaire, showed Carl all around the town, or all around his building, show how he became a multi-billionaire by selling food services, products and goods into the Caribbean islands, into the Virgin Islands, Bahamas, Jamaica, and all this, how he becomes so rich. And he said, now to Carl, he said, but how can I help you now, Carl? Carl said, what I want you to do is just buy some time on Mystic Radio, which is our black radio station. You know what this Chinese guy said to him? He said, I'm sorry, I can't do that. And Carl said, why not? I want you to buy time on our radio station. He said, I'm Chinese. He says, I guess our culture. He says, in our culture, the black man must always follow the China man. The China man does not follow the black man. We only stick with our own people. And I went and checked around on that. I found over 33,000 Chinese Asians that have become multi-billionaires just off of selling goods and services to black folk in America. That's everything with clothes and shoes and everything else. But I could not find not one Chinese guy. And I'm heading up trade missions. I'm representing the United States and taking trade missions into different countries from Europe and the Caribbean and Africa. I could not find not one black American who become a billionaire off of selling something that was selling products to Asians. Asians said, we'll sell to you all. We'll manufacture. We'll make the wigs. We'll go find horse hair, any kind of hair. We'll cut it. We'll find hair off of anybody in these poorest people in the world. We'll cut that hair off. We'll make wigs for you black folk. Half the time they got bugs and diseases and infestation in it. We'll sell it to y'all, but we're going to control those wigs. We're never going to let black folk make any money. And so what I'm saying to you, to get to past the point, it ain't about necessarily the quality. It's the commitment to buy from your own people first and foremost, and stick with them and give them a chance to build their structures and to stay tight as an economic order. That's what we can't get to. That's what we should be striving for. And black folk can fix chicken, then build your own chicken restaurants, franchise them across the country. That's why I tried to build a seafood factory. I built a seafood factory here in Washington, D.C. I became the biggest producer of seafood in the United States, period. Not for just black, period. I was raising 1 million pounds of fish annually, clean fish and clean water. And what I was trying to do is set up a vertical order so blacks could take over and dominate the seafood industry on a very simple powernomics principle, which says always dominate in business where you dominate in population. Buy from your own people first. Always dominate in business where you dominate in population and consumer spending patterns. And since black folk eat 3 to 4 times more seafood than whites, they spend $9 for every $1 whites spend, then we should be controlling the seafood industry. And so I built a factory so I can raise the fish. That's all I want black folk to do is to buy the fish at the lowest level, then build warehouses, distributorships, retail outlets, and to a chain of black seafood restaurants across the country. I even went to talk to Darden restaurants to buy out some of the Red Lobster restaurants. I'm going to have Black Lobster restaurants all over the United States. And yet, right here in Washington, D.C., raising 1 million pounds of fish a year, I had 14 black restaurants up in Baltimore, and guess what? They said, we'll come, if you build this order, we'll come by. And in 9 years, guess how many fish black people bought? Out of my raising 1 million pounds of fish a year for black folk to build a vertical system to own and control the seafood industry in America. I had the foundation. I was selling fish, lobsters, crabs, and oysters. They would have a chain of black lobster restaurants. I'm just saying black lobster. That have been equal to red lobster. And guess what? After 9 years, you know how many pounds of fish I sold to blacks? 40. And I was raising 1 million pounds a year. So after 9 years, I had to raise 9 million pounds of fish, and black folk bought 40.
Wow.
See, because they don't. So it's, I'm saying, you got to learn how to buy for your own people and control stuff. Own and control. Quit buying Popeyes. You start using a restaurant called Cross-Eyed. You can get some Cross-Eyed. I don't give a damn. Build some good, get Cross-Eyed restaurants. And buy from your own people and tell the blacks I'm going to buy from you. But you make this stuff as clean, make it look good, decorate it, and clean the place up, and give us some security down there where nobody will rape our women and rob our children, and make sure the product is good as soon as you can. But in the meantime, we will support you until you reach that point.
All right, everybody. I'm talking to, in case you just came in, I'm talking to Dr. Claude Anderson. He's the author of the books Powernomics, Black Labor, White Wealth, The Black History Reader, and Dirty Little Secrets 1 and 2. If you haven't done this yet, go to powernomics.com, and you can pick up the Powernomics Power Pack, which is all 5 books plus a DVD for just $99. So go check that out. It's well worth it. It's a very good investment for you and your family. So powernomics.com. Somebody please type that in the chat. And also, please hit the thumbs up button and the notification bell. If you have not done this yet, please hit the thumbs up button and the notification bell. And I'm going to take 1 second and acknowledge those of you who've been donating in the super chat since we started talking. I want to say thank you very much. Your money will be put to good use. I want to acknowledge Big Hurt from Royal Canary Car Care. That's the name of his company, Royal Canary Car Care. Big Hurt, thank you so much for your support. Tammy Printup from Primerica Financial Services. She says it can make your money work for you. Thank you very much for your support. Reginald Smith, Marcus Love, and Miranda Love. Thank you very much for both of you in supporting the platform. If you'd like to support and become a patron of the growth of Black media, we're going to make more movies next year. We have several movies that we're going to put out. A couple of them. One is Black Capital with director Peter Parker, who's in very high demand right now. He's doing movies for Netflix and everybody else, and he's going to come back and work with us again. Black Capital. We've also got a film I'm doing with Rick Mathis, who made the Black Friday series. The film is called Young Money Makers. That's what it is. Young Money Makers, which is all about young Black people who are making money and doing well in terms of wealth. And then 3, we're going to put out the Black Love Blueprint 2, #Boyce and Alicia. So we decided that we were going to document our process all the way up to the wedding as a celebration of Black love, because Black love is necessary to build Black economics, because if you don't love and trust each other, then you can't do business with each other. So one of the most important things we must do is learn to love ourselves, learn to love each other, and learn to build strong relationships. And last but not least, before I bring it back to Dr. Anderson, I want to remind everybody we are in New York this weekend. This is going to be the last time we're going to be here for a while. There are a few tickets left if you'd like to come to our event on Sunday. It is going to be a powerful financial Juneteenth investment seminar, 8 hours long of nothing but Black economics, everything from how to build your own family economy, your own family bank, how to build wealth for your family for the next 100 years, how to turn your kids into millionaires, and everything you want to know about the stock market. So if you'd like to come out, go to drboycenewyork.com. That's drboycenewyork.com. Buy your pass in advance, because I think we might sell out. So you may want to buy your pass in advance. We're right here in Midtown Manhattan, and it's a beautiful hotel. You're going to love it. So Dr. Anderson, let me
Boyce, let me make one other point let me take about a minute to conclude. I was telling you about the waterland raising the fish for Black folk. I want to show how group economics would work effectively. And I was speaking up in Portland, Oregon, and they would tell me, I started talking about gas stations. They said, I said, how many gas stations you got? They said, well, we got one. And I said, how's he doing? He said, well, he's not doing it. It's run down, and he doesn't have very much business. I said, where you getting your gas? He said, we got the rest of the gas station owned by whites. I said, why don't you practice group economics? They said, how do we do that? I said, what we can do, you go down to that black gas station. And I said, I want you all to go talk to him and tell him, look, we're going to start buying our gas. All blacks in this city are going to start buying gas from you. Buy from your gas station. But here's what Dr. Adams wants to tell you. We're going to buy our gas from you. And when we start buying it from you, we want you to understand, when the money comes in to buy it from you, three things we want you to do. First of all, make sure you clean this place up. Paint it up where it looks halfway decent and clean, point one. And it's safe with some security around in case nobody be getting robbed while they're getting their gas, point one. Point two, for the little products you sell in the store, make sure they are fresh products as best you can get. And as soon as you can get it. And three, change your negative, nasty attitude. So we come in here to buy from you, that you smile. When black folk come into this gas station to buy something, you just go run to the door and welcome and say, I'm glad you're here. Thank you for coming. That's all the three things I want you all to do up here for this one black gas station out of about 20 or 30 white gas stations. And they said, we're going to try it, Dr. Anderson. And so, amazingly, in about 3 or 4 weeks, it made the front pages of the paper up in Portland. Guess what? The newspaper were concerned about why they went to this gas station that had been fixed up, and blacks were lined up for 2 to 3 blocks on Saturday morning trying to buy gas from that black gas station. And that made a big difference. They started buying all the blacks in that city started buying the gas and little products from that one black gas station, which made a major difference. And you can still do it. That's what the other groups do. They buy from their own people. In Detroit, Michigan, a black city, a 92% black city, they got 146 gas stations. Guess what? Arabs now have gone in there and can now control and own 144 of them. Only 2 black gas stations in a city out of 146 in Detroit, Michigan. And blacks are spending their money on everybody but their own. And these Arabs put up all these damn bulletproof glass. They sell you bad food, do all kind of stuff. But black folks still go to those stores rather than going to their own black gas stations, their own black grocery stores. Practice group economics. That's the basis of Powernomics principle number 1. Spend your money and dominate in business wherever you dominate in products, services, and goods, and get the best buys you can get from your own people.
Well, I love what you said, Dr. Anderson, but first of all, I want to say, in terms of support, I want to make sure I acknowledge Kiana Courtney. Thank you very much for your donation. Also, don't forget, guys, that if you have a black-owned business, a couple of things I want to mention to you guys in terms of what we want to do for you in the Black Business School. You can sign up for a free membership. So if you don't at least have a free membership, get the free membership, because free membership is better than college. A lot of y'all went $100,000, $50,000 in debt to go to college. Even the free membership in the Black Business School is better than what you spend all that money for in college. So that's theblackbusinessschool.com. We got people right there that are ready to talk to you at theblackbusinessschool.com. And the reason I want you guys to do that is because in order to run good businesses, we have to really understand what that looks like. One of the most important things, like Dr. Anderson just talked about, is customer service has to be very important. We talk a lot about the black consumers neglecting the black businesses, but what we don't discuss as much are black businesses that neglect the black consumers. I don't know if anybody's ever gone into a black business where you almost feel like they disrespect you more because you look like them. You know, like you walk up in there and you talk to the person at the counter and they act like you're interrupting their day. You know, I go through that all the time in Chicago, Southside Chicago. You know, they got a couple of restaurants where I was like, I'm not coming back to these businesses. I don't care who owns it, because if I'm your customer and I'm giving you my money, I expect you to treat me with the same respect I'm going to get from any business that wants my money. You will never, black or white or otherwise, you are never going to get my money and disrespect me at the same time. That ain't going to happen, you know. And so I think that, you know, to your point, Dr. Anderson, what you said to that business about, you know, making sure that you're doing your best, that you don't look at the black customer as a lower tier customer. That's what it is. They look at black people, they say, oh, it's just a bunch of Negroes. Who cares about them? And instead of looking at them that way, you should look at them as superior. You know, right. You should see black. You say, okay, you're black like me. I'm going to treat you extra special because you're black. I'm going to give you extra dignity and honor because you're black. And I think that people don't understand that. I know that one of the things that we always talked about in business is customer service is real important to us, you know, and I don't understand, you know, I think that, well, I'm going to say I don't understand. I think that a lot of our business owners have to make sure they understand one important thing. And I want to share this with you guys as a secret. Make customer service your number one priority for your business. That has to be the most important thing. You must, Jeff Bezos, Dr. Anderson, who actually is the richest man in the world and started Amazon.com, one of his secrets to building Amazon was he became obsessed with connecting with his customers and making his customers happy. Did you have anything else you wanted to say to that in terms of?
Let me to wrap that up for you so we can both get off now. I'm going to give you the last example of that, which the point you're making. You remember those Howard Johnson restaurants that were very popular about maybe 20 or 30 years ago, Howard Johnson? They had hotels and also had restaurants attached to them. Well, when I was courting back in those days, dating my wife, I used to always stop at the Howard Johnson restaurant. It wasn't too far from her. And at that time, the neighborhood was going through a transition period, going from basically from white to black. But I used to always stop in that restaurant because you know why? Because that time they used to have the best banana splits you can get, Howard Johnson banana splits. And I would go into this Howard Johnson restaurant, and when you walked up to the counter, there's a little stand there for takeouts. And I would walk up to the takeout stand. I was standing there like this. At that time, they had all whites, working there. And she said, "What would you like?" I said, "I like a banana split." She said, "Yes, sir, we'll get it for you." And I said, "This is nice, good, clean food, nice atmosphere." But I said, "But where are all the blacks in here?" And so she brought me back the banana split. The white woman did. I said, "Lady," I said, "May I have one of your suggestion cards over there behind the counter?" She said, "Yes." She gave me a suggestion card. I took the suggestion card. This is for all your listeners now. I said, "May I have this suggestion card?" I said, "Dear sir, the owner of this business," I said, "this neighborhood is in transition. It's going from a white neighborhood to a black neighborhood. And this restaurant now has a lot of blacks coming here as customers. I think it'll be appropriate for you to start hiring some blacks in this restaurant, to be in accordance with the transition that's going through." And I said, "This is Dr. Claude Anderson, blah, blah." And I gave it to her. And she put it dropped it in the suggestion box. I came back about a month and a half later, stopped it again, went in there. This time I walked straight up to the takeout counter again. I looked around, and lo and behold, there was a black woman down on the counter. She's down like this on the counter, reading the newspaper, leaning on her elbows, and I stood there, Dr. Watkins. I must have stood there no less than 10 to 12 minutes, just waiting for her to see if she's gonna come and ask me what I wanted. Then, without even lifting her arms elbows off the counter, she leaned her head over and said, "You want something?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "What do you want?" I said, "Would you give me one of them other damn suggestion cards again? I got something to put on that son of a bitch, okay?" "You get rid of this heifer as fast as you can." I said, "I'm the one that wrote that earlier damn suggestion. I made a big ass mistake, okay? I made a mistake. You had the wrong ass person in the wrong place." I said, "I enjoy coming here. She has no respect for your customers. Get rid of it." And so when I tell blacks to go in business, respect your customers, appreciate them, and go out of your way. Just like the Japanese used to run and say, "Oh, I take glad welcome to my restaurant." I want blacks to treat their customers just like that. I don't care whether you're buying automobile tires or you're buying cross-eyed chicken sandwiches or whatever you want. You just make sure you take care of your customers, respect your people, and make sure your money bounces with your own people 8 to 12 times. Try your best not to ever let your money leave your own hands. Build wealth. Keep the wealth in your own neighborhoods, okay? And that's what I like to close out with.
All right. Well, I think that's a wonderful way to close out. So I'd like to ask everybody, number one, if you could hit the thumbs up button, hit that notification bell so you'll be notified whenever we go live. Please hit that notification bell right now if you can. Number two, please give Dr. Claude Anderson a digital round of applause. Please say something in the chat to let this man know how much we appreciate him. A lot of you are watching right now, and I like to make sure we let him know because, it's a tough fight out here. It's, the fight with black intelligence is tough in a world full of ignorance, and you got a lot of blind, deaf, and stupid people out here. And so please let him know how much you appreciate him. Second of all, I want to say that his website, if you want to go check out any of his books, and subscribe to his YouTube channel. Please support. Go to powernomics.com. That's powernomics.com. That's where all of his books are. You get all 5 books in the DVD for just $99 in the Power Pack. That's right there. I want to acknowledge Gigi. Thank you, Gigi, for your donation. Anybody who wants to be a patron of intelligent black media, we're trying to take over media all throughout the world. We're trying to become Tyler Perry without the Medea dress, right? The Tyler Perry studio is a wonderful place, but we know that's the house that Medea built because about 80% of his blockbuster movies were him putting on a dress. Well, I'm not going to put on no dress. I'm gonna put on a cape and try to be Black Superman for y'all. And we're gonna build our own Tyler Perry Studios, but we can use your help. So if you want to be a patron, feel free to go to intelligentblackpeople.com. If you join our League of Intelligent Black People, we will put that money to good use. I promise you, intelligentblackpeople.com. 2 more quick housekeeping issues. If you want to come to our event, our pop-up Black Business School that we're doing on Sunday, our investment seminar, you can go to drboycenewyork.com. If you want to come to our space tournament, we're having a fun space tournament in Chicago, in Joliet. If you live in the Chicago area, it's going to be November 9th. You can go to drboycechicago.com. Last but not least, those of you who can't make either one, if you want to see the lectures that I'm going to give on Sunday, I've already done recordings of these lectures. You can actually check them out at drboycemasterclass.com. So there you go. So that's a bunch of information for you and your family. Thank you guys very much. Thank you, Dr. Anderson. I appreciate your time, sir.
Well, thank you. And tell them, Boris, that anything they want to know about the current political situation, any question that could arise in their mind, are answered in those 5 books I put out there. You kind of go through there, they'll find answers to anything they want to know about the current politics and the historical politics.
All right. Powernomics.com. All right, everybody. Well, thank you guys very much. And I know, Marcus, you said you arrived late. It's okay, brother. All you got to do is just hit the rewind button. You can watch the whole video, my friend. So thank you all very much. It's great seeing you. And those of you who are coming out on Sunday, I'll see you then. So take care and have a good day, Dr. Anderson. Take care.
And have good luck on the program up in New York now.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We in this war together. We gonna win. We can't lose. Black people are too great to lose. We don't know nothing about no second place. At least I don't either, and I know you don't. So we gonna.
Well, you're a good fighter, and that's why I respect you.
Well, thank you. Well, the respect is mutual, and also you are as my elder. You paved the way for me. So without you, there is no me. And so I want us to all remember that. Without the Dr. Andersons, there are no Boyce Watkinses and none of that. So that's why my loyalty, and y'all know what my loyalty is at. So have a wonderful day, sir. Have a great day.
So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a live edition of Flow of Wisdom Radio. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am Sean Anthony. My website is flowofwisdom.com. Man, I got so caught up in doing what I'm doing, I didn't get a chance to post it, the links on social media yet that I am live. But flowofwisdom.com will get you a link to all of my social media, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, etc. You know, listen, this show today is going to be the beginning of a series. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that each week thereafter is going to be a part 2, part 3, part 4, and so on and so forth, you know, because I got other interviews and other things lined up for the show. But this show here is a part 1 of a series. And a few months ago, I received a call live here on the show, Flow of Wisdom Radio, from a gentleman out of Texas, Austin to be exact, if I'm not mistaken. And this gentleman called not only once, but he called twice, reminding me, you know, because whatever I was talking about on the show, it may have alluded to some current event that was going on here in the U.S., and especially about the racial tension that's going on, the injustices against black people here in America, police brutality, so on and so forth. And this gentleman called up and it was like, Sean, what about the boule? He kept asking, what about the boule? Why aren't we asking, you know, the people in the boule to speak up on the injustices of what's going on with black people in America? That's what his question was. I'm paraphrasing what he was asking to me. We got to put these people to the fire, hold them accountable, or what have you. Now, for some of you maybe listening, you're like, boule, what is that? And I never heard of that. What are you talking about, Sean Anthony? Well, that's what this show is going to be about. I'm going to be laying down some groundwork, some foundational information in regards to the boule. Now, I am by far not the expert on the boule. However, that's not going to say that I haven't done my research and looked into it, because I have. In fact, when that gentleman from Austin, Texas called in about the Boule, I immediately remembered my conversation with the late Steve Coakley, which I'm going to get into him in a little bit as well. Now, to kind of paraphrase it for sake of, just the introduction of who the Boule is. The Boule is fraternity, if you will. Sigma Pi Phi is the actual name of this fraternity, Sigma Pi Phi. And, after high school, I graduated and I went on to an HBCU, a historically black college university. I went to Central State University for 1 year. And when you have that experience as a young black man going to an HBCU, you get exposed to all of the black Greek organizations, the fraternities, the sororities. You have the alphas, the Omega Psi Phis, the Kappas, the Iotas, and the Sigmas, and of course the sororities, the Deltas, the AKAs. What is the one? Oh my God, they're gonna the Sigma Gamma Rho, and all of these other organizations, these black Greek organizations. You experience that on black college campuses, and it's quite an experience. And I've had an opportunity to really have some great relationships with some very, very good friends of mine that are a part of a lot of these black Greek organizations. Okay, now when you talk to these individuals, especially some of one of my closest friends, he's an alpha. Alpha is considered the first black Greek organization. And they will boastfully, proudly tell you that. But upon doing research, they are not the first black Greek organization. And in fact is Sigma Pi Phi. Alpha Phi Alpha was established in 1906. And Sigma Pi Phi was established prior to that, which we're going to get into. Sigma Pi Phi fraternity is the first black Greek organization, okay? And Sigma Pi Phi is also known as the Boule. Now, I'm going to get into the history of the Boule. And mind you, there's a lot of information that I'm going to cover for the next 2 hours. And please, by all means, feel free to call in, chime in. I'm going to take my time with this. I'm not going to try to rush this information. And because of the information, the great amount of information that I'm going to share, because it's so layered, we will take rabbit trails. Okay, we're going to go in many different directions because the information is so layered. Okay, and so with that being said, I will put the number out there, 877-300-7645. And if you are listening online, please, if you're on social media, tweet me at Sean_Anthony or go to my Facebook page. Just let me know, that you're listening. I haven't even had a chance. When I take a commercial break, I'm going to send some, post it to my social media, for people to chime in or whatever with your questions, your thoughts, your comments, even if you have some information to add to. But I will say, if you do have something to add to, just kind of bear with me because I may get to it. But nonetheless, it's an open conversation. We will be very phone interactive as well as social media. But real quick, I'm going to give you the history of the Boule from their own words, their own website, and this information is available. Okay, and then I'm going to play excerpts of my interview with Steve Coakley. Okay, now people may, before we even get into the history of the Boule, because after that, I'm going to play excerpts from my conversation with the late Steve Coakley. He passed away several years ago, okay? And to give you a background on who Steve Coakley is, and this is according to Wikipedia, he was an American political researcher and lecturer who lectured nationally on political and economic issues relating especially to the African American community. Steve Coakley was also, they called him a futurologist, who commented extensively on water conservation, organic farming, and communal living. Coakley gave over 5,000 lectures on the topic of global warming and corporate conspiracies, the Trilateral Commission, the Bilderberg Group, the Rothschilds, Rockefellers, Boule, etc. Coakley's research delved into the history of Marcus Garvey, the Black Panthers, and other areas of African American history. Steve Coakley lectured at many college campuses nationally, and was also known for his conspiracy theories involving the black male elite organization known as the Sigma Pi Phi, also the Boule is called the Boule, and the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. by the hands of Reverend Jesse Jackson and the CIA. Coakley was assistant to the Special Committee on Rules under Mayor Harold Washington. This is in his earlier years, ladies and gentlemen. He gained notoriety when he served as a special assistant to the former mayor of Chicago, Eugene Sawyer. So, giving you some background on Steve Coakley and a little bit more, he was criticized for teaching that Jewish doctors were using the AIDS virus in an attempted genocide against Africans. His comments created a nationally publicized controversy in 1988, and he was dismissed from his position as aide to Sawyer. When in 1990, Illinois Governor James Thompson signed an agreement to open an Israeli aircraft industries plant in Rockford, Coakley was an outspoken opponent. He argued that black leaders in Illinois should oppose Israeli war industries because of their military support for the apartheid systems in South Africa. So that's to give you a background on Steve Coakley when you hear my excerpts of my conversation with him several years ago before he passed. Now, mind you, just when I get to those excerpts, from my understanding, I think that my interview with Steve Coakley was like one of the last big platform public interviews that he did. Because after I interviewed him, it was not long after that he passed. However, he did do some radio programs and some Blog Talk Radio lectures. But as far as a bigger platform, from my understanding, my interview was one of the last interviews. So you're going to hear that coming up shortly. And when I come back from this break, I'm going to give you the history of the Boule. I am Sean Anthony. You are listening to Flow of Wisdom Radio. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in live here at Flow of Wisdom. I am your host, Sean Anthony. The website is flowofwisdom.com. My toll-free number is 1-877-300-7645. 877-300-7645. Today we're talking about the Boule, the history of the Boule. Now, from their website, I will share with you the history of the Boule. And this is by their member, the Grand Historian, Rodney J. Reed. It reads, at the dawn of the 20th century, black men of distinction had long functioned in various leadership posts, especially in the churches and benevolent association movement. Some notably, Frederick Douglass among them, had even served in high government posts. but by and large, they live lives separate from those of black masses and the white professionals. In 1904, a small group in Philadelphia set out to create an organization that would provide a vehicle for men of standing and like taste to come together to know the best of one another. Henry McKee Minton was the leading figure in the discussions about organizing a group for such purposes. Henry Minton was born in Columbia, South Carolina on Christmas Day in 1871. He went to the school at the Academy of Howard University and eventually Phillips Exeter Academy, from which he graduated in 1891. Minton studied law for a year and then went to pharmacy school at the Philadelphia College of Pharmacy, from which he graduated in 1895. He received his MD degree from Jefferson Medical College in 1906. Minton also spent considerable time contemplating the isolation in which accomplished black men lived and worked. He began to talk with other black professionals, Dr. Algernon B. Jackson being chief among them, about their shared conditions and about his ideas for forming an organization that would bring them together in fellowship. Minton thought that black, learned, and professional men should have an organization that, quote, should be a fraternity in the true sense of the word, one whose chief thought should not be to visit the sick and bury the dead, but to bind men of like qualities, tastes, and attainments into a close and sacred union that they might know the best of one another, end quote. Members would not be selected on the basis of brains alone, but in addition to congeniality, culture, and good fellowship, that they should have behind them at initiation a record of accomplishment, not merely be men of promise and good education. His fraternity would contain the best of skull and bones of Yale and of Phi Beta Kappa. I'll repeat, his fraternity would contain the best of skull and bones of Yale and of Phi Beta Kappa. After months of conversation with Jackson and some discussions with Edwin C. Howard, MD, and Richard J. Warwick, both physicians, the four men met together at Howard's home on May 15, 1904. The men agreed that they would meet again in 2 weeks and recruited two other physicians, Robert J. Abel and Eugene T. Henson, to join their group. In their first constitution, the group proclaimed that, whereas it seems wise and good that men of ambition, refinement, and self-respect should seek the society of each other, both for the mutual benefit and to be an example of the higher type of manhood, be it resolved that a society be organized for the purpose of binding men of like qualities into a close, sacred, fraternal union, that they may know the best of one another, and that each in this life may to his full ability aid the other, and by concerted action bring about those things that seem best for all that cannot be accomplished by individual effort. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the foundation thus far on the history of the Boule. Toll-free number to call is 1-877-300-7645. We'll be back with more on this. I'm Sean Anthony. This is Flow of Wisdom Radio. 1, 2. Check, 1, 2. Yeah, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are live here, Flow of Wisdom Radio. I'm your host, Sean Anthony. And remember, we do this show live every Sunday, 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Today, we're talking about the history of the Boule. Now, you got to be patient with me and go with me throughout this whole series, because it's laying the foundation to some stuff that's going to lead to some other things. And I told you, we're going to take different rabbit trails as I continue to share this information. And coming up here shortly in a few moments, I'm going to let you hear some excerpts of my interview with the late Steve Coakley. Just continuing on just a little bit on the history of the Boule. Also Sigma Pi Phi fraternity, also known as the Boule.
This Creditors in Commerce classroom session, hereinafter session, is the private exchange of ideas and concepts between the providers and the recipients. The content is not meant as legal advice. The use or attempted use of any idea or procedure discussed in this session as applied to the recipient's own personal transactions, cases, or controversy, or applied to other cases, may or may not result in a favorable outcome or the same outcome as discussed in this session. Each transition or transaction, case, or controversy may be different as a result of unique actions or unique statements made by the parties therein, and each different act or statement in any transaction affects or may affect whether any procedure or idea discussed in this session is relevant to your transaction, or that the outcome thereof will be depicted as in this session. The discussion of ideas or procedures in this session is not exhaustive of the subject being discussed. Many ideas and concepts that can affect the outcome of any legal or commercial procedure are not discussed in this session, and the fact that you may not be aware of these issues may have an adverse effect on the outcome of your procedure. It is the responsibility of each party to understand his own transactions and to apply the appropriate and complete concepts necessary for a procedural and substantive remedy thereto. This session may be redistributed privately by any recipient to another recipient requesting them, conditioned upon the fact that this notice is provided therewith. If you have any questions, you may contact Brandon by email at harmony@creditorsincommerce.com or by telephone at 702-866-9077.
Thank you for coming. Welcome to session 21 of Creditors in Commerce at the Living Temple. Actually, I had a few announcements. I don't remember them.
Where's your seminar in Chicago?
Well, yeah, there's the seminar in Chicago. All the information's on the website. No class on the 15th. That's not what it was. Oh, how many here are on the Monday night downloads with Jack Smith? Okay, I highly recommend getting on those. They're only $2 a week. Information for that is also on the website. Go to the resources section and top link, Jack Smith Monday night downloads. Highly recommended. Yeah, we have a Tuesday and a Wednesday night call now. 7 p.m. Pacific on Tuesday and 6 p.m. Pacific on Wednesday.
One Wednesday was extremely good.
Was it? Nice. Yeah, Kevin, he's on it. Who? Kimmery? Nice. Okay, since I don't remember my other announcements, I guess away we go. Alrighty, tonight I wanted to discuss a private international remedy demand. We've talked about the commercial process and getting results as far as making something happen, compelling some kind of performance. And we're going to start with step one tonight with this particular process. And this particular process is in relation to a debt collector, a third-party debt collector. So it's a unique process, but the nature of it and the structure of it can be formatted in such a way to work with any situation. Okay? Let's see, the documents are on the website, on the private network. They're not up on the Google group yet. From now on, all the documents, I'll put a zip file on the Google group. Right there, there's actually a files section in the Google group, but it will only be the files discussed in the classroom in that particular file section. Everything else will be in the private network. There's actually a plethora of materials available on the private network that are not available on the Google group. And for those of you who have actually logged into the Google group and seen the homepage of the Google group, you'll see that right at the top, a big giant link to the private network and a big giant message on how to get onto it. Okay?
Finally got on it.
Oh, did you? Oh.
Ryan sent me 6 emails.
So, let's see, I think I had something in relation to that. Nope. Alrighty. All right, so this particular process, now, this is a 3-step process. And all commercial processes where you're making a demand for some kind of a remedy, you want to use a 3-step process. Okay? We won't go over step 2 and step 3 tonight. I'll save that for next week. But each commercial process, such as this, an international remedy and demand, is step 2, notice of fault, opportunity to cure. Step 3, notice of default. And actually, step 4, enforcement, which you're going to be setting up your enforcement from step 2, where you're putting them on notices. Here's where I'm going to go if you do not perform within the next 10 days. Okay, because your notice of fault, opportunity to cure is saying, hey, I gave you so much time, whether it was 10 days, whether it was 30 days, to perform. You haven't. Here's your last chance before you're in default, and I move towards enforcement. See, once you've gone to step 3, which is the notice of default, certification by your witness of their default, you now have certification of their agreement in the contract, so you can now move forward with your enforcement because you have their agreement to move forward on enforcement. Okay, so I'll actually read through this just to give you an idea of the nature of it. I like this one. Actually, Gordon put this together. I've made some modifications to it. Is Gordon in here? Okay. So I've made some modifications to it. This particular process, because it's for debt collectors, we didn't actually make this process to be done through a notary. Okay, now I am going to do this same process and develop samples that will be a process through a notary. However, because there are so many that have difficulty with getting notaries, which now we've got a couple, I know, in this area that are doing processes and no presentment. And for those of our listeners and viewers in Canada and the UK, they have difficulty getting presentment because all the notaries are attorneys or solicitors or whatever you want to call them. Okay, so this is titled Respondent's Private International Remedy Demand. Okay? In the upper left-hand corner is the information of who this is coming from. Now the title is Private International, meaning between jurisdictions, from one jurisdiction to another jurisdiction, remedy and demand. So the address and name in the upper left-hand corner is a private address or an address from what we in the previous classes have called jurisdiction A. So it says John Henry Doe, uppercase, lowercase, The number and the name and the street, no abbreviations. No BLVD, no ST. No, you could do P.O. Box, but I don't recommend it. Because remember, post office sits on the fence. They're kind of both sides, but you would still have to make it a non-domestic address. And the way we do that is I also have the full name of the city, no abbreviations, the full name of the state, no abbreviations. Did you know capital C, capital A is a federal jurisdiction? Yes. It is not a state or the Republic of California. It's a federal zone, okay? And I put the zip code on here, but I put it in brackets. Those of you who did the class on Admiralty, remember what it means to put something in brackets. It's not there. Underneath that, I put non-domestic without the U.S. What's the significance of that? You're outside the jurisdiction of the democracy. Has anyone tried to do the mail thing yet? Non-domestic? Have you done it? 3 cents?
Yeah, it's going out. I'm waiting for replies to come back in. I have a question on that.
Already? Can we, hold on. A very important question, okay. Well, there are, again, there's several people I know in the first series of classes we did who did the non-domestic mail. Now, I don't use the 3 cent stamp if I'm doing a commercial process because I send the mail registered. Why am I sending it registered? As opposed to certified. Remember, this is not going through a notary, and this is specifically why I made this process not through a notary. If we're going through a notary can work on both sides. They can work in the democracy and without, or with the United States or without the United States. So they can send the mail certified because they're acting as an agent. They've already taken it from one jurisdiction, they brought it into their jurisdiction, and they're doing the mailing. Whereas if this is coming from me at a non-domestic location, I am not going to use certified mail. Certified mail, benefit and privilege. Registered mail specifically is geared towards this type of transaction. It's interesting. What color is the registered mail sticker? Red and white. It's red. Okay? What does red signify? Private. Okay? It's specifically for one jurisdiction to another. I've sent registered mail, no problem, to Puerto Rico. I've sent registered mail. You could pretty much probably send registered mail anywhere. Okay? So, in the upper right-hand corner, registered mail number, identifying the registration of my claim. So I have registered mail number and the registered mail number underneath, in parentheses, United States Postal Service. Okay, respondent's private international remedy and demand. Underneath that, notice to agent is notice to principal, notice to principal is notice to agent, and in parentheses, applicable to all successors and assigns. I don't know how many of you, see, I've done commercial processes with debt collectors in the past, and a lot of times they like to play hot potato. They're like, oh, I don't want to deal with this guy. And they pass it off to someone else, and then they pass it off to someone else, and I keep doing my process, and they keep running for the hills. Eventually, it was funny, I did this with a franchise tax board debt, and it ended up back at the franchise tax board because the debt collectors didn't want to deal with me doing the demands. They didn't want the liability, so they passed it back. They're like, hey, you keep it. We don't want it. We're not going to collect on it.
Did it get paid?
What's that?
Did it get accepted and paid?
Did it get accepted and paid? No, not by the debt collectors. They just passed it off.
Did they unconditionally accept it?
Did they unconditionally accept it?
The franchise board.
Well, they accepted it the first time.
Oh.
Right? When they didn't return my payment initially, they accepted it. So, it's all contract. Can you enforce your contract? Okay, respondent. Now, respondent in this particular letter, we're the respondent is who the debt collector is trying to collect from. Now, the debt collector sent the notice to an entity which is in jurisdiction B, signified by the name in all capital letters. Now, if the process were being done through that entity, would it be an international remedy and demand? No. That's why, again, registered mail, non-domestic address. But the respondent, all capital letters, John H. Doe. Alleged creditor, Debt Collectors, Inc., DBA, DCI Law Offices. Now, I think I made that name up, but there may actually be a company out there called Debt Collectors, Inc., and they may actually have a DBA called DCI Law Offices. I don't mean to offend. Alleged account. This is the account number that Debt Collectors, Inc., DCI Law Offices put on their alleged invoice or statement. Alleged amount, $125,000. Okay. The next subtitle, in all capital bold, offer of performance / conditions precedent. Number 1, this offer of performance is based on conditions precedent which must be fulfilled and is made with sincere intent of extinguishing any alleged debt, duty, obligation, liability, and the like, intended as obligating respondent, John H. Doe, all capital letters, hereinafter respondent, in above reference respondent's private international remedy demand, hereinafter presentment. Number 2. Now, hereinafter, why do we do that? We're defining it. Now, so from this point on, when I use the word respondent with a capital R, it has a special definition. When I use the word presentment with a capital P, it has a special definition. Remember the Constitution? All the capital letters in there? It wasn't because they were writing fancy. But they didn't define any of those words because those words were to be defined later. They could define those words in the U.S. Code or in any other statute because now it's up to the interpretation of the Constitution. But because we use capital blessings, capital liberty, we can make those, the word blessings and the word liberty, the word state and the word citizen mean what we want it to mean. But we didn't define it. Notice, definitions are missing from the Constitution. Very rarely do I write a contract without definitions in it. Especially if I'm going to be if I don't use capital words in a contract unless I've defined those as in hereinafter. So I've given a clear distinction. This guy, John H. Doe, all capital letters, respondent. I've given a clear distinction that this private international remedy demand is presentment. Those words, terms are now defined. Number 2. Concerning this offer of performance, certain conditions precedent must be completely, unambiguously fulfilled by, quote-unquote, debt collector and or, quote-unquote, alleged creditor. In accord with Fair Debt Collection Processes Act, and in brackets, 15 U.S.C. 1692 et sequita, whereby verification is required of an alleged amount due. See, typically, we don't use code. In this particular case, what we're doing, and Title 15 is interesting because Title 15 is one of those sections of the U.S. Code that's actually positive law. So we may not be in the jurisdiction where Title 15 applies, but the debt collector and the respondent are. Whereby verification is required of an alleged amount due. Advisory note. The term verification is defined in Black's Law Dictionary, 6th edition, as confirmation of correctness, truth, or authenticity by affidavit, oath, or deposition. Affidavit of truth of matter states an object of verification is to assure good faith in averments or statements of party. The term verify is defined in Black's Law Dictionary, 6th edition, to confirm or substantiate by oath or affidavit, particularly used of making formal oath to accounts, petitions, pleadings, and other papers. The word verify, when used in statute, ordinarily imports a verity attested by the sanctity of an oath. It is frequently used interchangeably with sworn. To prove to be true, to confirm or establish the truth or truthfulness, to check or test the accuracy of or exactness of, to confirm or establish the authenticity of, to authenticate, to maintain, to affirm, to support, to second, back as friend. Cite omitted in parentheses. So, isn't this sound a lot like what we're asking in a conditional acceptance? Aren't we asking for verification? Right? This offer of performance is made in good faith and is condition precedent on verification of an alleged debt. Conditions set forth are as follows. A, true, correct, complete, and not misleading copies of all assignments, negotiations, transfer of rights, novation, and the like, which unambiguously delineates that debt collector is the current owner, assignee, holder in due course, entitlement holder, which absolutely evidences alleged creditors' full and complete disclosure, including but not limited to any and all implied and or express written contracts and or any and all consent with any such agreement of a novation. B, please produce all relative commercial instruments, contracts, whether implied or express, which contain exchange of consideration and which contains verified, bona fide signature of respondent. Remember, this process is for a third-party debt collector. Do you have a contract with them?
No. They're third-party interloper.
Do they have any verification that the debt is valid?
No.
It depends on whether the first person is private or non-account.
What do you mean? Who's the first person? The person who assigned the debt? Ask that question again?
Okay. You've got the debt collector.
Here, put it on the mic so that people don't get all upset.
Debt collectors collecting.
Turn it on.
Debt collectors collecting for someone, who's that party? Private or not private?
Well, if they're a debt collector, they're a corporation, right? They may
That's
be.
what I'm asking.
They may
Is
be
it a
collecting for
corporation
an
or not?
international entity, but
Right.
makes no difference.
But they're a corporation by definition?
A debt collector?
No. The party they're representing, the debt collector's representing.
More than likely.
Okay.
I mean, now, if it were a private party, could a private party, like, for instance, if I hired a debt collector to go collect, I could give them a verified statement of the debt. I could have multiple parties who have firsthand knowledge of the debt sign verifications of the debt. Now, they have a substantiated debt. They'd actually be under the guidelines of Title 15. Whereas 99.99999% of the time they're not. Please provide an absolute evidence of an equal exchange of a benefit for valuable consideration, including but not limited to an exchange or detriment, in parentheses, implied contract, unconscionable, adhesive, or otherwise. D, please produce any absolute evidence of any series of external acts giving the objective semblance of agreement. E, Please produce any and all documentary evidence between respondent and debt collector and or alleged creditor that debt collector and or alleged creditor rely upon for making a presumptive claim. Can they produce that?
No.
Not unless you sign something with them. Please produce all relative commercial instruments and or notices, declarations, publications which clearly and unambiguously delineate that respondent was fully and completely apprised of all rights, duties, obligations, liabilities, costs, fees in advance or subsequent to the alleged incurrence of alleged debt, and where there has been full disclosure of all relevant terms and conditions. G, please complete and return debt collector disclosure statement. That's this 7-page document we're going to send along with it. Where was I? Please complete the return debt collector disclosure statement regarding offer of performance. H, please produce a certified copy of any and all verified judgments relative to this instant matter. Number 4, respondent expects a response regarding this offer of performance within a reasonable time of receipt of this offer, which is hereby set at 30 days, excluding the day of receipt. All responses shall be directed to the respondent at the address delineated on last page of this instrument. Respondent does not waive timeliness. However, if additional time is needed, debt collector and or alleged creditor must make a request in writing before the expiration of the above 30-day time period prescribed in number 4, setting forth the debt collector's and or alleged creditor's reasons for requesting such extension of time with good cause shown. All such requests for extension of time will be fully considered by respondent. Either the granting thereof for good cause shown or the denial thereof, however, such grant or denial is conditioned solely upon the decision of the respondent. What have we done there? Basically, if they send any response that we consider frivolous, we can deny it. It's up to our discretion whether or not we'll extend their time or not. Yeah, because we're actually asking for a specific response. We're asking them to answer these 54 questions, which are by Title 15 required. Wait till we get into these. Number 8. Wait, am I on number 8? Yeah, number 8. Respondent also expressly includes with this offer of performance a debt collector disclosure statement regarding offer of performance attached hereto and made a part hereof by this reference. To ensure debt collector and or alleged creditor clearly and conspicuously make all disclosures.
Robert, thank you so much for your time. Let's connect, okay? Yes, sir. Thank you. Peace. Robert in Chicago. Wow. That was a call I was not expecting. But hey, it's out there in the airwaves now. It's history now. What you gonna do with that information he just said on this platform here? You can download it now. You can take, after the show, you can download it and take that and break that down what he said. Try him. I'm telling you, look, I never met Robert before. I never met Steve Coakley face to face, but I've had conversations with him and I've watched this man's work. What he's talking about, just as far as, look, those men, they do their homework. I've met men like that. We'll be back with more on the history of the Boule on Flow of Wisdom. Ladies and gentlemen, Welcome back to Floor of Wisdom Radio. I'm your host, Sean Anthony. Toll-free number is 877-300-7645. Feel free to call in, chime in. The website is flowofwisdom.com. Connect with me that way, and we can keep it moving. This show is it's, man, what a call from Robert from Chicago. I just really want to thank him for taking the time to call in and share what he has shared. It was definitely appreciated. So listen, let's continue on. I want to recap, just play a small part of the excerpt that I shared with you guys in the first hour of Steve Coakley when I asked him about the Illuminati and his response. About midway through, he mentioned something. This is when he starts to go into the boule, but he mentioned something that Robert mentioned that I want to expand on and kind of remove some of the layers of some of the information that Steve Coakley is dropping here. So listen, this is midway in his response when I asked Steve Coakley about the Illuminati. This is when he gets into the boule right here.
For example, if I talk about the Black Secret Society Sigma Pi Phi.
Steve Coakley, is that the boule?
Yes, it is, which means advisors to the king. You can see that it's a subsidiary. Its godfather is the Rhodes Rothschild Secret Society, or known as the Round Table Group. So every society has a father, just like you and I and the rest of us have fathers and mothers. That's necessary, no matter who or what you are. Now, let me just one more sidebar about the word Satan and evil.
Let me stop it right there, because really the point I wanted to really focus on was when he talked about the Cecil Rhodes Rothschild Secret Society, the Round Table. The Round Table. And that's what Brother Robert mentioned as well, these secret societies. He said every organization, every entity has a father. Okay, when you start to look up the Round Table and start to do your research on what is the Round Table, you'll eventually get led to you'll get led to many different names. I'll put it to you that way. But one in particular that I want to make reference to is a historian. His name is Carroll Quigley. Okay, and he was the one that came out in some of his writings claiming that the Round Table groups were connected to a secret society. And Cecil Rhodes and all of them having the same type of goals, but Rhodes was believed by some to have formed this secret society in his lifetime. And there's also other names, Society of the Elect and so on and so forth. But about Dr. Carroll Quigley, he wrote a book entitled Tragedy and Hope. And let me just double check. If I'm not mistaken, the book was published in 1966. Okay? 1966. And in this book, he really goes into detail about these secret societies and some of these prominent names. Some of them you may not be familiar with, some of them you will. But in this book, which is interesting, there's a section where I don't know how should I say it. It's like anyway. There's a few scholars where they go back and forth about Quigley's book called Tragedy and Hope. But there's another book that was written by a gentleman by the name of W. Cleon Skousen. Skousen, okay? He came out with this book. First, a brief background. Skousen possesses unique qualities for his work. His keen analytical mind. Let me just backtrack. Dr. Carroll Quigley's book, Tragedy and Hope, might have escaped the attention of anyone but a few scholars, except for its careful dissection by Cleon Skousen. Skousen possesses unique qualities for this work. His keen analytical mind has been sharpened by legal training and by 16 years of service with the FBI. In addition, he was the distinguished chief of police in Salt Lake City for 4 years. Fast forward, Skousen wrote a book that's basically a commentary of Quigley's book. It's like a more condensed version that gets to the meat and potatoes of what Quigley was talking about. But we'll get back into this more after this break. We'll be right back. All right. I'm back, y'all, live here. Flow of Wisdom Radio. Sean Anthony, your host. The website is flowofwisdom.com. Toll-free number is 877-300-7645. And, I was pulling out an excerpt from my interview with Stephen Coakley, the late Steve Coakley, and he mentioned Roundtable. And I said, when you start to look up Roundtable, you're going to run into many different names. One of the names is Dr. Carroll Quigley. He wrote a book entitled Tragedy and Hope. And mind you, it's a very, very, very big book. It's very thick, okay? Like over 1,300 pages. And in his book, he exposes the elites in this country and abroad that financially support communism, socialism, and all of the other isms that you can think of. And Cleon Skousen, who I was just referring to you, he created a book. He wrote a book entitled The Naked Capitalist, which is a commentary review of Quigley's book. Okay? Does that make sense? So, with all that being said, I want to read some excerpts out of this for you. This is something that I think it should draw interest. And it all lines up. I know that the initial startup of the show was about the boule, but I'm trying to tell you, like, I'm breaking all of this stuff down because all of it connects, and it all pertains to what's going on in America today. And not only just America, but globally, okay? Because we're dealing with globalists. There's quite a bit of information. But let's see here. This book, written by Skousen, The Naked Capitalist. He basically knew, for example, that certain very wealthy and powerful persons, both within this country and abroad, are and have been doing things in support of the communist conspiracy throughout the world. Dr. Bella, he writes, Dr. Bella Dodd, a former member of the National Committee of the U.S. Communist Party, told Skousen several years ago that she became aware of some super leadership right after World War II, when the U.S. Communist Party had difficulty in getting instructions from Moscow on several vital matters requiring immediate attention. The American communist hierarchy was told that at any time they had an emergency of this kind, they should contact any one of the three designated persons at the Waldorf Towers. Dr. Dodd noted that whenever the party obtained instructions from any of these three men, Moscow always ratified them. What puzzled Dr. Dodd was the fact that not one of these contacts was a Russian or a communist. In fact, all three were extremely wealthy capitalists, Dr. Dodd said. I would, quote, I would certainly like to find out who is really running things. I think the communist conspiracy is merely a branch of a much bigger conspiracy, end quote. See, listen, this is me speaking. When I look at the dynamics of the presidential election, the debate, the process, and all of these things that we're seeing, the whole performance, the entertainment show that you see on TV, I have no choice but to look at it from a different set of eyes because I've been privy to such information. Now look, Robert that called in from Chicago that worked with Steve Coakley, those men probably forgot more than I know, you know, for the research that I've done. He's been doing research since I was a little kid. I haven't been doing my research that long. Like I said, they probably forgot more than I know. Okay? However, what I do know, I'm wise enough to know and understand the dynamics of what's going on before me. Like, don't you find this interesting? And I'm going to take look, we're going to take our time with this, guys. That's why I said this is going to be a multiple part series show. Listen to me for a minute. I know some of you out there, you know, don't watch TV. You guys are in your bunkers. You know, you're a doomsday prepper. You don't do anything connecting with the outside world. Okay, this may not be for you, but this is for the person that you're aware of what's going on. You're curious. You're learning. You know, you're starting to be privy to a lot of the real things that's going on in the world, and not what's being presented to you in the mass media. Okay, but you still like entertainment. Me, I'm a thespian. I love theater. I love arts. I love film. I love movies. I love television. I don't love it more than a Heavenly Father, but anyway. I enjoy watching television. One of the shows that I like on Netflix is called House of Cards. New season just came out. And I find it, as I'm watching this, it's like, you know, I just don't understand how people cannot see how the media is a performance. And the reason why I'm saying this, okay, and this is just not just House of Cards, but it's other television programs, it's other movies. When you see on a Hollywood TV show, inside the show, CNN, all the talking heads that you see on CNN or Fox News or MSNBC, all of those talking heads that you see on the TV right now, you see those same talking heads in the television show. The show is about a presidential campaign. The show is about electing who's going to be the next president. Inside the show, they are showing CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, the same way you see it on TV in reality. And it's produced, and Wolf Blitzer is on there. Who the other experts that come on there watching the delegates and the votes and this poll here and that poll there. It's the same exact thing that you see in reality on your TV. So I'm watching this and I'm like, man, this is in a TV show. This looks exactly like I'm watching CNN in real time. It goes to show you, for me, this is just for me, it goes to show me, it just confirms even more that what I watch on the media, in the media, it's produced, it's a production, it's a show, it's entertainment. I've said this on my show numerous times. I'll never forget a friend of mine who works in TV, we met up for dinner. I just got off the air, and he just got off the air. We met at a restaurant, and he was just venting, Sean, it's all lies. All lies. He's on TV. I was in radio. He was like, it's all lies. I try to present this story to the producer and this, that, and the third, and they exaggerate everything. So how do you trust when you're privy to that kind of information? How can you really put your trust in that? You've really got to use discernment and decipher the fact from the truth, because the enemy will always use a little bit of truth and cover it up with a lie. But it's still a lie. But it sounds so good because you hear bits and pieces of the truth that you bite it and chew it thinking that it is the truth, but it's not the truth. Oh, my goodness. 877-300-7645. We got, who is this, Leonard? We have Leonard in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Leonard, how you doing? Welcome to Flow of Wisdom.
Hey, long time no hear from, Sean. Sorry about that, but I've been
trying to get acclimated to my new job, because you got to take care of yourself down here.
Absolutely.
The Lord come back, and it's good to hear you talking about this political thing, because the people at office are talking about it, and people in the street, and I'm glad to see that there's a few of us that's looking through all the distractions and stuff that they're putting in to get us, riled up and everything, because it's just the right-left paradigm. I mean, all people had to do is listen to what the candidates are saying. I mean, Donald Trump came out and said, yes, I have given to Hillary's campaign before, and we know each other. You see? I mean, I mean, he had one of the biggest reality show, there is, on, what he had, his little show he had a couple of years ago. So he's well versed in getting people riled up. So, I mean, people are playing right into his hands. Not just him. The whole thing is a political theater. And, I mean, me, myself, when people try to get me to, get involved in a lot of this back and forth that they have, because my wife showed me a couple of videos where there's people coming to different rallies and getting in fights. I said, man, they just playing into the puppet master's hands. This is what they're trying to do. Not to say that we don't have some real issues to deal with, but these people are not going to solve them for us. We have to solve them on a one-on-one basis with each other. Nobody sitting up in a big building in Washington, D.C. is going to solve the problems here in Winston-Salem. It has to be solved between me and whoever the person is that I got the problem with.
That's true. That's true. The thing about Donald Trump, man, when I watch him speaking at some of these rallies and these debates, interviews, I'm sorry. When I hear him in interviews, all he talks about is numbers. Like, he is a full-fledged businessman. Like, you could tell, all he talks about is numbers. Well, if you look at the recent polls, I'm up in this poll. The Wall Street Journal did a poll. This poll is ridiculous. I don't understand. All he talks about is numbers. That ain't got nothing to do with American people and policies,
Exactly.
But
he doesn't care about these people, the ones that he, rallying in South Carolina. I mean, all the people have to do, they talk about Washington politics, they talk about the wealthy, and they actually going to look at him and say, oh, he's somebody that I can relate to. You can't relate to.
He's a billionaire. He's part of a few. Yeah, Leonard, thanks for the call, man. I got to take a quick commercial break. We'll be back with more on this on Floor of Wisdom Radio.
All right, thanks.
The saying is, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Welcome back to Floor of Wisdom Radio. I'm your host, Sean Anthony, and man, very interesting show. Listen, we are going to continue this show, the topic, next week. I will pick up where I left off, because look, I told you guys I was going to take my time through this, just because of the level of information that I have just preparing for this show. I knew in advance I was not going to finish it. Like, I have, 3 or 4 more different audio clips of Steve Coakley. I only got through one, okay? The history of the Boule. And coming up next week, we're going to dive into more connecting the dots. I'm going to get more into Quigley's book and Skousen, who did the review on Quigley's book, which is some profound information. And Quigley's book was written in '66, and he's talking about big people and elite people in secret societies and how it's all connected. Raytheon, how I'm going to talk about next week, how Raytheon is connected. How the Boule is connected to Raytheon, I shall say. Raytheon is the world's largest producer of guided missiles. Okay, it's a big company, big business. But we'll get into that coming up next week. 877-300-7645. Leroy in Atlanta. Leroy, you're a part of the show, man. You are a staple of Flow of Wisdom. Welcome back, my brother. How are you, man?
hanging in there. Hey, would that be the same Raytheon that made the missile that hit the Pentagon? That was painted to look like the United 93 or whatever it was.
Yeah, I don't know if that was that one, but Raytheon's the biggest. They're the largest. So, what are your thoughts on Hillary Clinton? I see you wanted to talk about Hillary Clinton and mention something about the boule. Quickly, man, before we run out of time.
Oh, well, the Hildebeest and her dirty server she's using to blackmail her way into the White House. So any of those emails that are secret are probably something dirty on the person that they were sent to. That is why that is not being exposed. And Loretta Lynch went as far as to say that even if the FBI suggested, that does not mean we're going to prosecute. But she is going to see if she can prosecute people who deny climate change.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it sounds just like what Steve Coakley and Robert from Chicago were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But what he was saying about CERN was especially interesting. They can't stop the second coming, but they will make every attempt to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that information that Robert shared briefly on CERN was very, very interesting, and we'll be connecting, and I'm going to get my ducks lined up and be able to present some things here in the near future. So, you guys got to stick with me. But how was this information for you so far, Leroy? Was this interesting to you?
Oh, extremely. I mean, he actually said that Barack Obama was a agent. That would explain why he closed his records where no one could see him once he became president.
Yeah, he said that Obama is CIA for Pakistan.
There you go.
So
there you go. The enemy within, huh? Sitting at the top. But he's not the only one.
I'm sure it
and
is.
Trump, I mean, the only reason people are gravitating to Trump is because he is not a career politician.
No, he's clearly not. You can see he's clearly not.
And that's not saying he's a better choice, because he's a rich man. And the word says it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to get into heaven.
There it is. Well said. Leroy in Atlanta. Always a pleasure, man. Thank you, brother.
All right, we'll be seeing y'all next week.
Yes, sir. Next week, man, we are going to continue this subject on the boule. So please, if you know somebody that should be privy to this information, please share. Let them know to rock with me. To give them the link. Send them the link. Download this show here alone and share it and discuss it and talk about it. That's what's going on. We don't talk and communicate about productive things and things that can edify us and inform us and really bring light to a lot of things that's in the dark. I'm going to be dropping some really heavy information on you in the next few weeks, guys. So please spread the word about Flow of Wisdom. All right. So next week we're going to do it again. Sunday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Live life, get wisdom, and let it flow. I'm Sean Anthony. Be blessed. Peace.
I want to show you all quickly, explain to you why that jury of 6 blacks and 6 whites after 3 hours came back and found that white boy guilty of conspiring to kill Dr. Martin Luther King. And they went further than that. And they also said there was some co-conspirators, black folks, unnamed, that was involved. I want to show you a little 3-minute clip of the minister that Dr. King was going by his house for dinner. He was due at 7, but they had to move it up because 7 would be a little too dark to shoot somebody. So they moved it to 6 o'clock. 2 years ago at a press conference in Memphis, I get a call. They said, so-and-so is thinking about killing so-and-so, so-and-so. I said, what? I said, well, he said something at a press conference. I said, put him on the phone. I said, whatever you do, get that film. Because once NBC realized what this brother had slipped and said, we will never evidence in the King trial where they brought a wrongful death suit, and I'll explain that to you quickly in a minute. But what you're fixing to witness now is the man who came by to get King to take him to dinner. And 30 years later at a press conference, he slipped because God do baffle your mind sometimes. You look,
some of the activities are geared especially for the young who did not have a chance to get the feel or to know what the civil rights movement actually was about. Even as they marched, now they could have stopped in a hotel, but when you think about marching from Memphis to Jackson or Jackson to Memphis, there were no hotels. You stayed in churches, you stayed in people's homes, and that's how we got over, that's how we got through. The struggle was a spiritual struggle. You couldn't pay people to do what we had to do. You couldn't pay people to stand before mad dogs and fire hoses and billy clubs and cattle prods. It was strictly a spiritual and moral movement. So we wanted that dimension to be in the pilgrimage to Memphis. We will revisit the mountaintop speech site. That's the Mason's Temple, where Dr. King made his last address, which he almost didn't make, because the night that we were having that rally, there were tornado warnings, and he was behind on the Poor People's Campaign. And he said, you guys go on over and have the rally. I'm going to stay at the motel and work on the Poor People's Campaign. When we got there and Dr. Abernathy walked in and Jesse Jackson walked in and I walked in and others, people started clapping because they thought Martin was behind us. And so Ralph's preacher said to him, this is not our crowd. And he went to the phone and called Dr. King and said, any of the marches that we had in those days, you have an opportunity to bring the children and bring the family and march with us. And when I finished sharing with them the last hour of Dr. King's life, I hurried. But that gave me the wonderful privilege of spending the last hour on earth. 3 preachers in a room, Abernathy, King, and Kyle. And we spent that last hour together in room 306 at the Lorraine Motel. The press is always curious, and writers, what went on? What did you talk about? I say, we just talk preacher talk. What preachers talk about when they get together.
Y'all pay
revivals and all
what you're fixing to hear now.
About 5:45, we walked on the balcony, and he was talking to people in the courtyard. He stood here and I stood there. Only as I moved away, so we could have a clear shot, the shot rang out.
Thank you.
I turned around and then knocked him back on the balcony.
Listen. Oh. Wait, listen. Listen. 30 years later, this brother never realized he would slip and say that. Do you know what happened when you're sitting in a jury room about a conspiracy and this piece of film is introduced? He stood here, I stood here, only as I moved away so he could have a clear shot. The shot rang out. This was the brother that he was going by his house for dinner. Now, to my brother Matty, you will have a copy of this tape. I'll get it back to you. And what you should do is make copies. See to it, because this is a very valuable. And y'all need to send this tape to people all over this country. And so this was the trial that went on that the press didn't want the report because they couldn't. Huh? They couldn't. And so we have to stop getting mad and upset because the same system that's killing us refuse to tell us the truth. You have to use your own God-given intelligence. If we was all over Germany today walking down the street and we see this big old building and it's named after Adolf Hitler, you don't have to be too smart to realize something evil is going on inside that building. Well, how come you don't understand that when you walk down in Washington, D.C. and see that big old brand new FBI building named after J. Edgar Hoover? How come?
This Creditors in Commerce classroom session, hereinafter session, is the private exchange of ideas and concepts between the providers and the recipients. The content is not meant as legal advice. The use or attempted use of any idea or procedure discussed in this session as applied to the recipient's own personal transactions, cases, or controversy, or applied to other cases